Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto became the legendary Dragon Ranger and fall in love with Kira Ford Power Rangers. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. The Last Leaf Falls. Blood trickled down Naruto Uzumaki's forearm, pooling at his fingertips before dripping onto the scorched earth. The 19-year-old Jonin knelt among the ruins of what had once been Konoha's eastern district. His breath materializing in short clouds before him in the unnaturally cold air. Dawn should have broken hours ago, but the sky remained an impenetrable void of swirling purple-black energy, a malevolent aurora that had appeared 3 days prior. "Damn it," he whispered, adjusting the cracked porcelain fox mask that now identified him among the Hokage's elite guard. Not that there was much left to guard. Naruto pressed his palm against the fractured stone of a fallen monument, feeling the residual chakra signatures of those who had touched it over generations. His sensation had become a morbid ritual, a way to remind himself that Konoha had once teemed with life before the tears in reality had begun appearing throughout the shinobi world. Hokage-sama's emergency bunker has been breached, came Shikamaru's voice through the modified radio transmitter in Naruto's ear. The tactical genius's typically lazy drawl had vanished months ago, replaced by clipped, precise statements that betrayed no emotion. Casualty reports still coming in. You need to fall back to point zero immediately. Naruto's fingers curled against the stone. Survivors. The silence that followed lasted 3 heartbeats too long. Inconclusive. But the energy readings are off the charts. Whatever came through that tear, it wasn't like the others. Rising to his full height, Naruto surveyed what remained of his home. The Hokage monument, once a proud symbol of Konoha's legacy, had been reduced to rubble when the first dimensional tear had appeared directly behind it 6 months earlier. The strange purple lightning that continuously pulsed from these tears had proven impervious to even the most advanced chakra techniques. One by one, the hidden villages had gone dark. "I'm not retreating," Naruto replied, channeling chakra into his legs. "Send coordinates for the breach point." "That's suicide, even for you," Shikamaru countered, the sound of shuffling papers audible in the background. The last sensor team registered energy fluctuations consistent with coordinates, Shikamaru. The edge in Naruto's voice left no room for argument. Another pause. "Transmitted to your locator." "But Naruto, Kakashi-sama's last order was to preserve what remains of our forces. We're down to less than 40 combat-capable shinobi." Naruto didn't respond. With a burst of speed that sent debris scattering behind him, he bounded across the ruined landscape, his chakra-enhanced jumps carrying him over gaping fissures in the earth and around the strange crystalline formations that had begun growing wherever the dimensional energy touched the ground for too long. The fox mask concealed the hardened expression that had become Naruto's default in recent months. Gone was the boisterous, optimistic young man who had helped end the Fourth Shinobi World War. That Naruto had died alongside his friends, alongside Sakura, crushed beneath the hospital she'd been trying to evacuate, alongside Sai. Vanished into one of the tears while attempting to map their patterns, alongside so many others. The coordinates led him to what had once been the Hokage Tower, now a skeletal framework surrounding a pulsating orb of energy easily 20 meters in diameter. Unlike the other tiers, which appeared as jagged rifts in space, this manifestation swirled with colors Naruto couldn't name. Its surface rippling like liquid glass. Bodies of Anbu guards lay scattered around the perimeter. No blood, no signs of struggle, just empty vessels, their chakra completely drained. "I've got visual on the breach," Naruto reported, crouching behind a partially collapsed wall. "It's different," sending chakra pulse for sensor analysis. He formed a modified clone seal, creating a single shadow clone that immediately transformed into a small fox. The transformed clone darted toward the nearest body, touching it briefly before returning. "Life signs negative," the clone reported in a perfect mimicry of Naruto's voice. Though pitched slightly higher, chakra networks completely hollow. It's like they were drained from the inside out. Naruto absorbed this information with a grim nod. "Disperse and feed the data back to command." As the clone disappeared in a puff of smoke, Naruto felt the sensory information flow into his consciousness. Something about the residual energy signature around the bodies felt familiar, not like chakra, but reminiscent of. The dimensional orb pulsed, sending a shockwave of energy that shattered what remained of the surrounding structure. Naruto threw up a hasty chakra barrier, but the force still sent him skidding backward, his sandals carving trenches in the ground. From within the swirling portal, a figure emerged. At first glance, it appeared human, bipedal, roughly 2 meters tall, with proportions that suggested a muscular build. But as it fully materialized, Naruto realized how wrong that assumption had been. Its skin was OSAIC of what looked like cracked obsidian plates, beneath which pulsed the same otherworldly energy as the portal. Where a face should have been, there was only a smooth reflective surface, like a mirror that showed nothing. Hostile confirmed, Naruto said into his communicator, drawing a specialized kunai from his equipment pouch, one of Konoha's newer innovations, designed to disrupt chakra flow. Humanoid, unknown classification, approaching with caution. The being tilted its featureless head, the movement unnaturally fluid. Then, in a voice that seemed to bypass Naruto's ears and resonate directly in his mind, it spoke. Dragon essence detected. Confirmation required. Naruto froze, kunai held at the ready. Identify yourself and your purpose, he demanded, channeling chakra into his free hand. Ready to form a Rasengan at the slightest provocation. The entity took a step forward, and the ground beneath its foot crystallized instantly. You carry the resonance frequency. Unexpected in this dimensional plane. The architect will be interested. I don't know what you're talking about, Naruto growled, but you're standing in what's left of my village. The one your kind has been destroying piece by piece. Quote, your dimensional understanding is primitive, asterisk, the being replied, its mental voice devoid of emotion. We do not destroy, we harvest. This plane is rich with unusual energy, chakra, you call it. But you carry something else. Something older. Without warning, the entity's arm extended like liquid metal, stretching across the distance between the faster than even Naruto's enhanced reflexes could track. Cold obsidian fingers wrapped around his throat, lifting him off the ground. The dragon sleeps within. We will extract it. Pain unlike anything Naruto had ever experienced erupted from the point of contact. Not physical agony but something deeper, as though the creature was attempting to tear out his very essence. He could feel his Akra being forcibly pulled toward the entity's touch, flowing out of his body like water down a drain. In desperation, Naruto slammed the specialized kunai into the being's arm. The blade penetrated the obsidian surface, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, a high-pitched whine filled the air as the disruption seal activated. The creature's grip faltered, and Naruto dropped to the ground, gasping for breath. Without hesitation, he formed the familiar cross seal. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 20 perfect copies of Naruto materialized around him, each already moving into attack formation. Years of combat experience had refined his clone tactics to near perfection. Each clone knew exactly what to do without explicit instruction. Interesting, asterisk, the entity mused, observing the clones with its featureless face. Self-replication of essence. Inefficient but tactically advantageous. 5 clones converged simultaneously, kunai aimed at different points of the creature's body. The entity moved with impossible speed, its limbs elongating and twisting to intercept each attack. 3 clones disappeared in puffs of smoke, their memories flowing back to Naruto, the sensation of striking something both solid and liquid at once. Followed by a cold emptiness as their chakra was absorbed on contact. Standard attacks ineffective, Naruto muttered to himself, analyzing the feedback. Let's try something with more kick. 2 more clones flanked the original Naruto, their hands moving in synchronized motion as they helped form a Rasenshuriken. The familiar screeching sound of wind kra filled the air as the technique took shape, a massive shuriken of pure chakra, rotating at speeds that could shred cellular structures. The entity paused, its head tilting once more. Fascinating construction. Dense energy manipulation approaching interdimensional resonance. Perhaps you are more evolved than anticipated. Less talking, more dying, Naruto snarled, launching forward with the Rasenshuriken extended. The remaining clones moved in coordinated patterns, creating openings and distractions to give the original Naruto a clear shot. The entity made no attempt to dodge. Instead, it raised both arms, the obsidian plates shifting to create what looked like a concave dish facing the oncoming attack. The Recentrican struck the makeshift shield and vanished. Not deflected, not absorbed gradually, simply gone in an instant, as though it had never existed. Dimensional pocket deployed, asterisk, the entity stated. Your attack now exists elsewhere. Elsewhere. Semantics are difficult across language barriers. Before Naruto could process this development, the ground beneath his feet trembled. Fissures spread outward from the dimensional orb, glowing with the same unnatural light. One of his remaining clones was caught in a widening crack and disappeared with a startled cry, not dispelled but simply, gone. Full retreat, came Shikamaru's voice through the communicator. Tight with barely controlled panic. All forces, full retreat. The dimensional integrity of the entire village is collapsing. Naruto stood his ground, hands already forming seals for his next technique. I can still, your resistance is noted, asterisk, the entity interrupted, but ultimately irrelevant. This plane has been designated for complete harvesting. The anomalous dragon essence in you will be extracted and catalogued before final consumption. The dimensional orb behind the entity pulsed again, expanding rapidly. Waves of energy washed over the landscape, and everywhere they touched. Reality seemed to thin. Buildings, trees, even the very air became translucent, as though fading from existence. Through his communicator, Naruto could hear the chaos of the command center, shouted orders, desperate pleas. The static of communications failing one by one. Underground complex breached. Can't maintain the barrier. Where's Yamanaka's team? Then, Shikamaru's voice, unnaturally calm. Naruto. The fail-safe. You know where. The transmission cut off abruptly. Naruto's jaw clenched behind his mask. The fail-safe. A last resort plan developed after the first wave of dimensional incursions. Deep beneath Konoha, in chambers even older than the village itself, lay a network of seals and artifacts gathered from across the shinobi world. If activated, they would theoretically create a chakra pulse powerful enough to seal all dimensional tiers within a 50-kilometer radius. The cost? Every drop of chakra from those who initiated the sequence. A suicide protocol. Naruto glanced around at what remained of his home. The entity stood watching him, making no move to attack or pursue as the dimensional orb continued to expand behind it. Your thought patterns suggest decision-making. Choose quickly. Dimensional collapse accelerates exponentially once begun. Without another word, Naruto turned and ran, not away from the entity, but deeper into the ruins of Konoha. His remaining clones dispersed automatically, their chakra returning to reinforce his reserves. The secret entrance to the underground complex had been built beneath the Hokage monument. Accessible only to those with specific chakra signatures recognized by the protective seals. Naruto landed in front of the now exposed doorway, the mountain face that had once concealed it reduced to rubble. Pressing his palm against the ancient stone door, Naruto channeled a precise amount of chakra, not too much, which would trigger the defensive measures, and not too little, which would be rejected. The door groaned open, revealing a descending staircase illuminated by seals that glowed a soft blue. As he descended, the sounds of destruction above faded, replaced by an unnatural silence. The air grew cooler, heavy with the scent of old paper and ink, the smell of sealing techniques layered over centuries. The main chamber opened before him, a vast circular room with walls covered in intricate seal work that pulsed gently in the dim light. In the center stood a waist-high stone pedestal, upon which rested a small scroll, the activation key for the fail-safe. Naruto approached slowly, removing his Anbu mask and setting it aside. This moment deserved to be faced with nothing hidden. So this is how it ends, he murmured to the empty chamber. Not with some grand victory or heroic last stand. Just, alone, underneath what's left of everything I swore to protect. His fingers hovered over the scroll. Once opened, the fail-safe would begin immediately, drawing on his chakra to power the village-wide sealing array. A tremor shook the chamber, dust and small fragments of stone raining down from the ceiling. The dimensional collapse was accelerating. Naruto closed his eyes, centering himself. In his mind's eye, he saw them all. Sakura, Sasuke, Kakashi, Iruka, all the friends and mentors he'd lost in this slow-motion apocalypse. What would they say if they could see him now? "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I couldn't save you. I couldn't save any of you." His hand closed around the scroll. The paper felt warm to the touch, already responding to his chakra. Another tremor, stronger this time. A crack appeared in the chamber's dome ceiling, and through it, Naruto could see the unnatural purple-black sky. As he began to unroll the scroll, a single drop of that strange energy fell through the crack, landing not on Naruto but on the stone floor beside the pedestal. Where it struck, the solid rock rippled like water, revealing something buried deep within. Naruto paused, scroll half opened. The ripple effect spread, dissolving the stone in a perfect circle approximately a meter in diameter. From within this newly created hole, a soft golden glow emerged. Curiosity overrode caution. Naruto set down the scroll and approached the hole, peering inside. Nestled in what appeared to be a small, ancient chamber beneath the main room was a pedestal far older than anything else in the complex. Atop it sat a single coin-like object, gleaming with a light that seemed to come from within rather than being reflected. "Dragon essence detected, asterisk," came the now familiar mental voice from above. "Primary target located." Naruto spun around to find the obsidian entity descending through the growing crack in the ceiling, its mirror-like face reflecting the golden light from below. "The architect will be pleased." This plane contained not only harvestable energy but a primary fragment as well. Naruto positioned himself between the entity and the mysterious object. "Whatever that thing is, you're not getting it. Your protective instinct is misplaced, asterisk," the entity replied. "You cannot shield what is already part of you." Before Naruto could question this cryptic statement, the entity launched forward with impossible speed. This time, Naruto was ready. He sidestepped the initial lunge, simultaneously creating 3 shadow clones that immediately attacked from different angles. As the entity engaged the clones, Naruto returned to the pedestal with the scroll. The fail-safe was still their best option, even if it meant sacrificing himself. But as his fingers touched the scroll again, the golden light from the hole pulsed brightly, sending a wave of energy through the chamber. The entity froze mid-attack, its obsidian body momentarily paralyzed. "Impossible," it projected, the mental voice showing emotion, surprise, perhaps even fear, for the first time. "The fragment should be dormant in this dimensional plane." The golden light grew more intense, beams of it shooting upward through the crack in the ceiling and into the dimensional rift visible beyond. The unnatural purple-black energy seemed to recoil wherever the golden light touched it. Driven by instinct rather than reason, Naruto abandoned the scroll and moved toward the hole in the floor. The golden light reached out to him like tentative fingers, brushing against his skin with a warmth that felt familiar, somehow, not like chakra, but not entirely unlike it either. "Do not," the entity warned, breaking free from its momentary paralysis. "Direct contact with an unbound fragment will, asterisk." Naruto ignored the warning. He reached down into the hole, his fingers closing around the coin-like object. Power surged through him, raw, primal energy unlike anything he had ever experienced. It wasn't the corrosive burn of the Nine Tails chakra, nor the clean, focused power of Sage Mode. This was something older, something that resonated with the very fabric of reality itself. Visions flashed through his mind. A massive mechanical dragon roaring across an alien sky, warriors in strange armor fighting creatures of nightmare, a grid of light extending infinitely in all directions, connecting everything that was or ever would be. The coin grew hot in his palm, but Naruto couldn't release it, couldn't even move as the energy continued to pour into him. His chakra network burned as it struggled to adapt to this foreign power. The entity lurched forward, reaching for him with elongated obsidian fingers. "Relinquish the power coin, human. Your biological structure cannot contain its energy." "Power coin." Naruto managed to gasp, his voice barely audible over the growing maelstrom of energy swirling around him. The coin pulsed once more, and suddenly Naruto understood, not in words, but in pure conceptual knowledge imprinted directly into his consciousness. This was the Dragon Power Coin, an artifact of immense importance in dimensions beyond his own. And somehow, impossibly, it had recognized him as its wielder. The entity's fingers were centimeters from Naruto's throat when the coin released a blinding flash of golden-green light. The obsidian being was thrown backward, crashing into the chamber wall with enough force to crack the ancient stone. Activation sequence initiated. Asterisk, it projected, its mental voice now tinged with something like awe. The dragon chooses a champion from this doomed plane. The architect must be informed. The chamber shook violently, chunks of ceiling crashing down as the dimensional collapse accelerated. Through the widening gap above, Naruto could see the dimensional orb expanding to engulf what remained of Konoha. The power coin burned brighter in his palm, the pain now almost unbearable. Yet Naruto found himself speaking words he had never heard before, as though something else was using his voice. Dragonzord. Green Ranger power. A column of green-gold energy erupted from the coin, enveloping Naruto completely. He felt his body changing, not transforming physically, but somehow becoming more than it had been, as though he existed simultaneously in multiple planes of reality. The entity scrambled to its feet, retreating toward the dimensional rift above. Unexpected outcome. Recalculating harvesting parameters. Naruto could barely hear it over the roar of energy surrounding him. The power was too much. Too alien. His consciousness was beginning to fragment under the strain. As darkness crept into the edges of his vision, Naruto had one final coherent thought, a desperate wish to save something. Anything from the world that had been his home. The coin pulsed in response, as though it had heard him. The column of energy expanded explosively, engulfing the entire chamber just as the dimensional collapse reached its critical point. Reality shattered. Pain. That was Naruto's first sensation as consciousness slowly returned, a deep, bone-aching pain that permeated every cell in his body. His eyelids felt like they were weighted with lead as he struggled to open them. Bright sunlight stabbed at his retinas, forcing him to squint. He was lying on his back on what felt like grass. The scent of earth and vegetation filling his nostrils. A gentle breeze caressed his face, carrying unfamiliar sounds, distant mechanical noises unlike anything in Konoha. "Easy there, kid. Don't try to move just yet." The voice was male, middle-aged, with an accent Naruto couldn't place. He turned his head slightly toward the sound, wincing at the spike of pain the movement caused. A man knelt beside him, human, apparently in his 50s, with short graying hair and concerned eyes. He wore simple civilian clothes, a black t-shirt and jeans. "Where?" Naruto began, his throat painfully dry. "Angel Grove Park," the man replied, offering a plastic bottle filled with clear liquid. More specifically, the North Ridge overlooking the lake. "Here, small sips." Naruto accepted the bottle cautiously, taking a tentative taste of the liquid. Water. Clean and cool. He drank gratefully, then tried again. "Angel Grove. I don't know this place." The man's expression shifted subtly, concern deepening, mixed with what might have been recognition. "I was afraid of that. The energy signature your arrival created, it had interdimensional markers." Naruto stiffened, memories flooding back. Konoha in ruins, the obsidian entity, the strange coin. The coin. His hand flew to his pocket, searching frantically. The man caught his wrist gently but firmly. "The dragon coin is safe," he said quietly. "It's reverted to dormant state after bringing you here. Interdimensional travel takes a lot out of it, and out of you, apparently." Naruto stared at the stranger, suspicion building. "You know what that thing is. Are you working with those creatures?" The man released Naruto's wrist and sat back, a sad smile touching his lips. "No, quite the opposite, actually. My name is Tommy Oliver. And if the dragon coin chose you as its bearer, then we have a lot to talk about." With considerable effort, Naruto pushed himself into a sitting position, taking in his surroundings. They were on a grassy hillside overlooking a large lake. In the distance, he could see a city of strange architecture, tall buildings made of what appeared to be glass and metal, nothing like the wooden and stone structures of the shinobi world. "This isn't my world," Naruto said slowly, the reality of his situation sinking in. Tommy shook his head. "No, and from what I sensed when you arrived, your world might not exist anymore, at least not in the form you knew it." The blunt statement hit Naruto like a physical blow. His hands curled into fists, grabbing tufts of GR. As he fought to control the wave of grief threatening to overwhelm him. They called it harvesting, he said through clenched teeth. Said the entire plane was designated for it. Everyone I knew, everything I fought for. Tommy remained silent, allowing Naruto the space to process. After a moment, he reached into his own pocket and withdrew an object identical to the coin Naruto had found. Though this one gleamed white and green rather than gold. The dragon coin you carry is unlike any other power coin in existence, Tommy explained, holding up his own coin for comparison. The original coins, like this tiger coin, were created to channel energy from what we call the Morphin Grid, a universal energy field that connects all living things across all dimensions. Despite his grief, Naruto found himself listening intently. Something about this explanation resonated with his understanding of chakra. But the dragon coin is special, Tommy continued. It wasn't created, it was discovered. Legend says it predates even Zordon, the being who established the first ranger team on Earth. And it has the unique ability to traverse dimensions, seeking out potential wielders during times of great cosmic imbalance. Naruto pulled the coin from his pocket, examining it in the sunlight. Now dormant, it appeared to be simple gold metal etched with the image of a dragon. So this thing, what? Decided to save me while letting everyone else die. Tommy's expression hardened slightly. The coin doesn't think that way. It responds to potential and necessity. If it chose you, there's a reason, a purpose you're meant to fulfill. What purpose could possibly justify? Naruto began, anger rising, but Tommy cut him off. The beings that destroyed your world, we call them void wraiths. They're servants of something much worse, an entity known as the Architect. And they've been harvesting dimensional energy across the multiverse for centuries. Tommy stood, offering a hand to help Naruto up. Your world wasn't the first they've consumed. And it won't be the last, unless someone stops them. Naruto ignored the offered hand, rising on his own despite the pain. And you think that's me? Because of some coin, I think, Tommy said carefully, that you're a warrior. I can see it in the way you move, the way you assessed your surroundings the moment you regained consciousness. I think you lost everything. And you're looking for a purpose, a way to make that loss mean something. He pocketed his own coin and gestured toward the city below. I think you have abilities from your world that could be invaluable here. And I think the dragon coin wouldn't have chosen you if you weren't capable of becoming something extraordinary. Naruto stared at the coin in his palm, feeling its subtle warmth. In my world, I was a ninja of Konohagakure. I had sworn to protect my village as its future Hokage. His voice caught on the words. I failed. Tommy's expression softened. Then perhaps this is your second chance. Not to replace what you've lost. Nothing can do that, but to prevent others from experiencing the same fate. Before Naruto could respond, a high-pitched beeping sound came from Tommy's wrist. He raised what appeared to be a watch to his mouth. Go ahead. A female voice emerged from the device, tense with urgency. Doctor. Oh, we've got major trouble in downtown Reefside. Energy signatures matching those void wraiths from last month, but stronger. Ethan's trying to evacuate civilians, but we're outnumbered. Tommy's posture changed instantly, tension visible in every line of his body. I'm on my way, Kira. And I'm bringing help. He looked at Naruto, a question in his eyes. Naruto hesitated only briefly before nodding. Whatever this world was, whatever these void wraiths were doing here, they were connected to the destruction of his home. That made it his fight. I assume these void wraiths are like the obsidian creature I encountered. Naruto asked, already checking his remaining equipment. Kunai, shuriken, smoke bombs, all intact in their pouches. Similar but usually less powerful, Tommy confirmed, reaching for his car keys. They're like scouts or foot soldiers, gathering energy for the larger incursions. As they hurried toward a nearby parking area where a black jeep waited, Naruto glanced at the coin in his hand once more before securing it in an inner pocket. You mentioned rangers before, he said as they climbed into the vehicle. What exactly are they? Tommy started the engine, a determined expression settling over his features. Power Rangers are warriors chosen to protect their worlds from threats too powerful for conventional forces to handle. They use the Morphin Grid to transform, gaining enhanced abilities and access to specialized weapons and vehicles. The jeep roared to life, speeding down the hillside road toward what Naruto presumed was the city called Reefside. And this Kira person, She's one of these rangers. Tommy nodded, taking a sharp turn that would have sent a civilian tumbling. Naruto noted with approval that the man handled the vehicle with the precision of someone well trained in combat driving. Kira Ford is the yellow Dino Thunder Ranger, or was. The dino gems that powered that particular team were depleted during our last major battle. But she and the others still have residual connections to the grid. Enough to sense interdimensional disturbances and handle minor threats. He glanced at Naruto. But if these signatures are as strong as she says, they'll need more than residual power. The implication was clear. Naruto touched the pocket containing the dragon coin. You want me to use this? Become a ranger. The decision is yours, Tommy said, his voice calm despite their speed. But that coin chose you for a reason. And right now, we could use all the help we can get. The city grew larger ahead of them, so different from Konoha that it hardly seemed real to Naruto. Tall buildings of glass and steel reached toward the sky, streets filled with strange metal vehicles, signs and lights of types he had never seen before. And above one section of the city, a familiar purple-black energy swirled in the sky. Naruto's jaw tightened. Whatever doubts he had about this new world, about the coin's purpose in choosing him, one thing was clear, the same force that had destroyed his home was threatening this place now. I'll help, he said simply. But I fight my way, as a shinobi of Konoha. At least until I understand what this ranger power actually is. Tommy nodded, respect evident in his expression. Fair enough. Just be careful. The physics of this dimension might affect your techniques in ways you're not expecting. As they approached the downtown area, signs of battle became evident. Damaged buildings, abandoned vehicles, civilians running in panic from something just out of view around a corner. Tommy parked the jeep in an alley and turned to Naruto. Last chance to back out. Naruto was already adjusting his headband, one of the few tangible reminders of his former life. Not a chance. They exited the vehicle and moved swiftly toward the sounds of combat. Rounding a corner, Naruto got his first clear view of the situation. In the middle of what appeared to be a town square, 3 young adults were engaged in battle with at least a dozen entities similar to the one Naruto had faced in Konoha. These were smaller, less defined, more like shadows given partial substance, but their obsidian skin and featureless faces were unmistakable. One of the defenders, a young woman with caramel-colored hair streaked with blonde highlights, executed an impressive aerial kick that connected with a wraith's chest, sending it stumbling backward. She wore civilian clothes, a yellow top and black jeans, but fought with the discipline of a trained warrior. That's Kira, Tommy said quietly. The others are Ethan and Trent, blue and white Dino Rangers. Naruto assessed the situation with practiced efficiency. The 3 former Rangers were holding their own but clearly tiring. Their attacks seemed to damage the wraiths temporarily, but the creatures recovered quickly. They need a different approach, Naruto observed. Physical attacks alone won't work against these things. Tommy nodded grimly. That's why we need the power coin. But if you want to try your way first. Naruto formed a familiar hand seal. Shadow Clone Jutsu. In a series of small explosions of smoke, 10 perfect copies of Naruto appeared beside him, each in an identical ready stance. Tommy's eyes widened. Well, that's definitely not something I've seen before. Without waiting for further discussion, Naruto and his clones charged into the fray. His sudden appearance of multiple identical warriors momentarily confused even the Void Wraiths, creating an opening that Naruto was quick to exploit. Surround and isolate, he commanded, his clones immediately executing the strategy with practiced precision. 3 clones engaged each wraith, attacking from different angles to prevent the creatures from focusing on any single target. Kira Ford spun around at the commotion, her eyes widening at the sight of multiple identical blonde men in strange clothing engaging the wraiths. Doctor, oh, she called out, spotting Tommy approaching. What the hell is going on? Who's the ninja boy band? Long story, Tommy replied, moving to help a young African-American man, Ethan, presumably, who was cornered by 2 wraiths. Short version. Interdimensional ally with unusual abilities. Naruto found himself positioned near Kira as they fought back-to-back against the encroaching wraiths. He noted with approval that despite her apparent lack of superhuman abilities, her fighting style was refined and effective, a combination of formal martial arts training and street fighting pragmatism. So, she said between strikes, somehow maintaining a conversational tone despite the intensity of the battle. You're from another dimension. That's a new one, even for us. Apparently, Naruto replied, deflecting a wraith's elongated arm with a kunai. Thog. Mine doesn't exist anymore thanks to these things. He felt her stiffen slightly behind him, then redouble her efforts against the wraith she was fighting. I'm sorry, she said, her voice softer but no less determined. That seriously sucks. The simple acknowledgement, free from pity or platitudes, struck Naruto unexpectedly. He found himself appreciating her straightforward response. Clone. Nearby dispelled after taking a direct hit, the memories flowing back to Naruto, the sensation of having chakra drained on contact, just like in Konoha. He adjusted his strategy immediately. Don't let them touch you directly. He called out to the others. They drain energy on contact. Yeah, figured that out the hard way last time, Ethan responded, using what appeared to be a piece of debris as a makeshift shield. They're like energy vampires on steroids. Despite the effectiveness of Naruto's shadow clones in dividing the wraiths, the fundamental problem remained. Their attacks weren't causing lasting damage. Even his chakra-enhanced strikes only temporarily disrupted the creature's obsidian forms before they reconstituted. As if sensing his frustration, the dragon in his pocket began to warm against his chest. Naruto could feel it pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat, calling to him. One of the larger wraiths suddenly broke through the line of clones, heading directly for Kira, who had momentarily turned to help Trent, a young man in white who had been thrown against a wall. Without thinking, Naruto moved, his body flickering with speed as he intercepted the wraith's attack. Its obsidian arm pierced through his shoulder instead of Kira's back, eliciting a pained grunt as he felt his chakra being rapidly drained. Naruto! Tommy shouted, seeing the young shinobi impaled by the wraith's appendage. Kira spun around, her eyes widening at the sight of Naruto standing between her and certain death, the creature's arm protruding from his shoulder. Let her go, Naruto growled, his voice deepening as he locked eyes with the wraith's featureless face. With his free hand, he reached into his pocket and withdrew the dragon coin, which now glowed with brilliant golden-green energy. The wraith's head tilted, that now familiar mental voice projecting, dragon essence. Primary target located. All around the square, the other wraiths ceased their attacks, turning in unison toward Naruto and the glowing coin. Doctor! Oh! Kira called out uncertainly. What's happening? Tommy moved to her side, helping Trent to his feet. The dragon coin has reactivated. It's responding to him, and to the threat. Naruto could feel the coin's energy flowing into him, counteracting the wraith's draining effect. The pain in his shoulder faded as golden-green light spread from the coin up his arm, across his chest, and throughout his body. You destroyed my home, Naruto said, his voice steady despite the power surging through him. You killed everyone I ever cared about. And now you're threatening this world too. The coin pulsed brighter with each word, as though responding to his emotions. Not anymore. Something deep within Naruto's consciousness shifted. A knowledge that wasn't his own yet somehow felt natural, as though he had always known it but only now remembered. His free hand moved of its own accord, raising the coin skyward. Dragonzord. Green Ranger power. The words triggered an explosion of energy that engulfed Naruto completely. The wraith was thrown backward, its arm detaching from Naruto's body as the transformation began. Green and gold light swirled around him like liquid, solidifying into armor that covered him from head to toe. The sensation was unlike anything he had experienced, not like a physical garment being placed upon him, but more like his very cellular structure was being enhanced, reinforced, transformed into something beyond ordinary human limitations. When the light faded, Naruto stood transformed. His body was encased in green armor with gold accents across the chest and shoulders, forming a design reminiscent of dragon scales. A helmet covered his head completely, its visor shaped like a dragon's open mouth, concealing his face while somehow enhancing his vision. The wound in his shoulder was gone, healed completely by the transformation process. The assembled wraiths recoiled visibly, their mental voices overlapping in a cacophony that only Naruto could hear. Dragon Ranger active. Threat level increased exponentially. Requesting extraction. The architect must be informed. Naruto, the Dragon Ranger, looked down at his armored hands, feeling the power coursing through him. It was different from chakra, yet somehow complementary to it, as though the morphin D energy the armor channeled was resonating with his existing abilities rather than replacing them. Okay, Kira said, breaking the momentary silence with characteristic directness, that is seriously cool. Tommy stepped forward, his expression a mixture of awe and concern. The Dragon Ranger. It's been centuries since one manifested in this dimension. Before Naruto could respond, the largest of the wraiths let out a mental howl that pierced through his enhanced senses. The creature's obsidian body began to expand, absorbing 3 smaller wraiths that seemed to melt into its form willingly. Consumption protocol initiated. It projected, retrieving dragon essence for the architect. The now massive wraith lunged forward with shocking speed, its body reshaping into something resembling a many-armed monstrosity. Each limb ended in a razor-sharp blade of crystallized void energy. Acting on instinct, Naruto raised his hand. In a flash of green light, a dagger appeared, its hilt shaped like a dragon's head. 3 holes along its blade suggesting it could be played like a flute. The dragon dagger, Tommy breathed. I haven't seen that in. He was cut off as Naruto charged forward to meet the wraith's attack. The dragon dagger sliced through the creature's obsidian limbs with ease, leaving trails of green energy that prevented the severed parts from reattaching. Naruto moved with fluid grace, his natural agility and combat training enhanced by the ranger armor. Each strike was precise, each movement economical, the product of years of ninja training now amplified by powers beyond his understanding. The wraith howled in mental anguish as its form began to destabilize, unable to regenerate fast enough to counter Naruto's relentless assault. With a final thrust, Naruto drove the dragon dagger into what passed for the creature's core. This is for Konoha, he said quietly as green energy surged from the blade into the wraith's body. The creature convulsed once, then exploded in a shower of obsidian fragments that dissolved into nothingness before they hit the ground. The remaining wraiths, witnessing the destruction of their enhanced comrade, retreated hastily toward a small tear in space that had appeared near the edge of the square. They're escaping, Ethan called out, attempting to pursue but clearly exhausted from the extended battle. Naruto raised the dragon dagger to his helmet. Something told him that this weapon was more than just a blade. Following that instinct, he placed it against what would be his lips beneath the helmet and blew into the holes along its edge. A haunting melody emerged, 3 notes repeated in a specific pattern that seemed to resonate with the very fabric of reality. The tear the wraiths were escaping through wavered, its edges destabilizing. Dimensional interference detected, came the panicked mental projection from the retreating wraiths. Cannot maintain stability, The tier collapsed, trapping half of the remaining wraiths between dimensions. Their forms stretched grotesquely before shattering like glass, leaving nothing behind. The square fell silent. Naruto lowered the dagger, breathing heavily despite the power sustaining him. The exertion hadn't been physical but energetic. Channeling the ranger powers while still adjusting to them had taken more out of him than he'd expected. Kira approached cautiously, respect evident in her expression. That was impressive. I mean, we've seen rangers before, obviously, but not like that. The Dragon Ranger is unique, Tommy explained, joining them with Ethan and Trent following close behind. The power doesn't come from a specific team or mentor, it's connected directly to the deepest layers of the morphin grid itself. Naruto could feel the others studying him curiously. The helmet concealed his expression, which he found oddly comforting as he processed everything that had just happened. How do I turn this off? He asked, his voice slightly altered by the helmet's systems. Tommy smiled slightly. Just focus on releasing the power. The coin will respond to your intent. Naruto closed his eyes behind the visor, concentrating on the sensation of the energy flowing through him. Rather than fighting it or pushing it away, he simply acknowledged it, thanking it for its aid and letting it know he was safe now. The armor responded immediately, dissolving into particles of green light that swirled around him briefly before disappearing. The dragon dagger vanished from his hand, returning to whatever dimensional pocket it had emerged from. As his normal appearance returned, Naruto swayed slightly, the toll of the transformation and battle catching up with him. Kira stepped forward quickly, catching his arm to steady him. Whoa there, interdimensional ninja boy. Take it easy. Her touch was firm but gentle, her expression concerned despite the teasing words. Up close, Naruto could see that her eyes were a warm amber color. Currently narrowed in assessment as she helped him stay upright. I'm fine, he assured her, though he didn't immediately pull away. Just adjusting. Morphing for the first time takes a lot out of you, Ethan said sympathetically, and that was no ordinary morph. Trent, the young man in white who had remained largely silent, finally spoke. We should get out of here. That light show is going to attract attention, and I don't think we want to explain to the police what just happened. Tommy nodded in agreement. Good call. Let's head back to my place. We have a lot to discuss. And Naruto here probably has about a million questions. As the group moved toward the vehicles parked nearby, Kira fell into step beside Naruto. So, she said conversationally, as though interdimensional warriors appeared in Reefside every day. Naruto, huh. Interesting name. It means maelstrom in my language, he replied, finding her directness refreshing after the cosmic strangeness of everything else. It was given to me by my godfather. She nodded thoughtfully. Fits the whole appearing in a storm of green energy and turning into a superhero vibe you've got going on. Despite everything, the loss, the pain, the utter strangeness of his situation, Naruto felt the corner of his mouth twitch upward. There was something about Kira's matter-of-fact approach to the insanity around them that grounded him. I'm not a hero, he said quietly. I couldn't save my own world. Kira's expression softened, but there was a strength in her eyes that reminded Naruto of the kunoichi he had known. Yet here you are, helping save ours. Seems pretty heroic to me. As they reached the vehicles, Naruto paused to look back at the battlefield. In the distance, he could hear sirens approaching. This world's version of emergency response, he presumed. The dragon coin rested once more in his pocket, dormant but still warm against his skin. He had no idea what his future held in this strange new world. With these powers he barely understood, fighting enemies that had destroyed everything he had ever known. But for the first time since watching Konoha fall, he felt something stir within him, not hope, exactly, but purpose. If he couldn't save his world, perhaps he could prevent others from suffering the same fate. The coin pulsed gently, as though in agreement. You coming, Dragon Boy? Kira called from beside a blue car. We've got about 10 minutes before this place is swarming with cops and reporters, and trust me, you do not want your interdimensional debut to be on the 6 o'clock news. Naruto turned away from the battlefield and walked toward his new allies. Whatever came next, he would face it as he had always faced challenges, head-on, with everything he had. The last shinobi of Konoha had found a new battle to fight. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, Worlds Apart. Morning light filtered through unfamiliar curtains, casting geometric patterns across Naruto's face as he lay perfectly still on the guest bed. He had been awake for hours, methodically cataloging every sound, scent, and sensation of this alien world. The distant hum of vehicles. The strange synthetic smell of the bedding. The constant, subtle vibration that seemed to permeate everything, the resonance of a civilization built on machinery rather than chakra. 3 days. That's how long he had been in this dimension. 3 days since Konoha had fallen. 3 days since he had become something called a Power Ranger. With practiced silence, Naruto rose and moved to the window. Tom. Why Oliver's house sat on the outskirts of Reefside, nestled against a forested area that reminded him painfully of the woods surrounding Konoha. From this vantage point, he could see the city in the distance, all gleaming steel and glass. Utterly foreign to his eyes. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Naruto. Tommy's voice came through the door. Breakfast is ready whenever you are. And we have a visitor I'd like you to meet. I'll be down shortly, Naruto replied, his voice neutral despite the constant turmoil beneath the surface. He dressed quickly in clothes Tommy had provided, simple jeans and a green t-shirt that felt stiff and strange compared to his usual attire. His ninja gear had been damaged during the dimensional transfer, though he'd managed to salvage his headband and weapons pouch. These he secured in their usual places, unwilling to abandon these last tangible connections to his world. The dragon coin rested on the bedside table. Naruto regarded it warily, remembering the surge of power that had coursed through him during the battle. It had been exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure, raw energy unlike anything he had ever channeled, even during his most intense battles using the Nine Tails chakra. After a moment's hesitation, he pocketed the coin and headed downstairs. The kitchen was occupied by 3 people: Tommy, preparing something at the stove; Kira Ford, perched on a stool at the counter nursing a mug of coffee; and a young woman Naruto hadn't met before. Asian features, shoulder-length black hair with a single electric blue streak, glasses perched on a delicate nose. Her attention focused on a complex-looking device in her hands. "Morning, Dimensional Boy," Kira greeted him, raising her mug in salute. The nickname she'd coined for him after their battle seemed to have stuck. "Sleep any better?" Naruto shrugged noncommittally. They all knew he wasn't sleeping well. The nightmares made sure of that. "Well enough." Tommy turned from the stove, spatula in hand. "Naruto, I'd like you to meet Dr. Himari Takamura. She's a dimensional energy specialist who works with Lightspeed Rescue, another ranger team based in Mariner Bay." The young woman set down her device and stood, offering her hand in what Naruto had learned was the customary greeting in this world. "It's an honor to meet you, Naruto-san," she said, her formal tone suggesting she was making an effort to respect what she perceived as his cultural background. Naruto accepted the handshake briefly. "You're Japanese," he observed, recognizing the honorific in her accent. "Japanese-American," she corrected with a small smile. "Born in Tokyo, raised in California. My parents were both scientists who emigrated when I was 3. She adjusted her glasses with an index finger. "Though I suspect Japan means something quite different in your dimension, if it exists at all." Himari developed the first reliable instruments for detecting and measuring interdimensional energy fluctuations. Tommy explained, placing plates of what he called pancakes on the counter. "After your arrival registered on practically every sensor across the western seaboard, Speed thought it might be wise to send their expert." Naruto took the offered seat beside Kira, noting the way Himari's eyes kept darting to the pocket where he'd stored the dragon coin. "You want to study me," he stated bluntly. Himari had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "Not exactly. Well, yes, partially. But more importantly, I want to understand what's happening with these dimensional incursions. They've increased by 327% over the past 6 months, and your arrival coincides with the largest spike we've ever recorded." Kira rolled her eyes. "What drive? Numerically precise here is trying to say is that we need your help figuring out why reality is starting to unravel around us. And if we can help you in return, perhaps find a way to reach your home dimension or locate survivors, we'll do everything in our power," Tommy added, his expression solemn. Naruto stared down at the plate before him, the sweet aroma of the unfamiliar food doing nothing to stimulate his appetite. "There's nothing to reach," he said flatly. "My world is gone." I felt it collapse. A heavy silence fell over the kitchen, broken only by the quiet beeping of Himari's device. After a moment, Kira nudged his arm gently with her elbow. "Eat," she instructed. "Dimensional traveler or not, you need food. Dr. O makes the best pancakes in Reefside, and that's not something I say lightly." The simple normality of the gesture, an almost Sakura-like prod to take care of himself, made Naruto's throat tighten unexpectedly. He picked up his fork and mechanically began eating, if only to avoid conversation. Tommy wisely changed the subject. "Himari, tell us more about what your readings are showing. Are these incursions following any pattern?" The young scientist activated a holographic display from her device, projecting a 3-dimensional map of what Naruto presumed was the local region. Dozens of glowing points appeared across the image, concentrated in several specific areas. "The breaches aren't random," she explained, her demeanor shifting to clinical precision. "They're appearing along what I call dimensional fault lines, places where the barriers between realities are naturally thinner. What's concerning is that they're becoming more stable and lasting longer with each manifestation." She manipulated the display, zooming in on Reefside. Yesterday's incursion in the town square remained open for nearly 17 minutes before Naruto-san forced it closed with the dragon dagger. Previous tiers typically collapsed within seconds. "They're learning," Naruto observed, airily setting aside his grief to focus on the tactical problem. adapting their techniques to this dimension's specific resonance frequency. Himari looked up sharply, surprise evident on her face. That's exactly right. How did you know about dimensional resonance frequencies? Naruto shrugged. We have had similar concepts in my world. Different chakra types resonate at different frequencies. It's basic jutsu theory. Fascinating, Himari murmured, clearly itching to ask 1,000 questions. The parallels between chakra theory and morphin grid dynamics could provide invaluable insight. HTS into cross-dimensional energy manipulation. Kira raised a hand. Before you two get lost in theoretical physics or whatever, maybe we should focus on the practical problem. Like, why these void wraiths are targeting Reefside specifically? That's obvious, Naruto said, setting down his fork. They're looking for me, or more specifically, for this. He pulled the dragon coin from his pocket, its surface gleaming dully in the morning light. Tommy nodded grimly. The dragon power has always been a target. Throughout Ranger history, various forces have sought to claim or destroy it. That doesn't explain why they attacked your world first, Himari pointed out, adjusting her glasses again. A nervous habit, Naruto noted. According to the temporal energy signature analysis I conduct, on the residual particles surrounding you upon arrival, your dimension was targeted nearly 6 months before you ever connected with the dragon coin. Naruto frowned, processing this information. 6 months ago, that's when the first tears appeared in the shinobi world. Small ones, barely noticeable. Our scientists thought they were natural phenomena, strange weather patterns or side effect. From the chakra released during the Fourth Ninja War. Your world was being scouted, Tommy concluded. The wraiths were testing its defenses, analyzing its energy signature. But why? Kira asked. What made his dimension special? Himari and Tommy exchanged meaningful glances, a silent communication that didn't escape Naruto's notice. You have a theory, he stated. Tell me. After a moment's hesitation, Tommy sighed. The morphin grid exists across all dimensions, but it manifests differently in each reality. In some, like ours, it can be accessed through technology and specific power sources like the power coins. In others, Himari continued, it might take forms that locals interpret through their own cultural and scientific frameworks. Understanding dawned on Naruto. Quote, you think our chakra was actually morphin grid energy? That's impossible. Chakra comes from the combination of physical and spiritual energy within the body. It's an internal power, not something external we tap into. Perhaps not exactly the same, Tommy conceded, but possibly related. Connected at a fundamental level we don't yet understand. Which would explain why the wraiths targeted your world, Himari added. If your dimension had developed a unique method of harnessing what is essentially morphin grid energy, that would make it incredibly valuable to entities like the architect who feed on that power. Naruto stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. So my entire world, everyone I knew, was destroyed because these wraiths wanted to study our chakra. Not study, Kira said quietly. Harvest. Like Tommy explained, they consume energy. The realization hit Naruto with physical force. All those lives, Sakura, Kakashi, Shikamaru, all of them, extinguished simply as food for interdimensional parasites. His hands clenched into fists as rage bubbled up within him. The dragon coin in his hand began to glow in response to his emotions, its golden green light intensifying with his anger. Naruto, Tommy said carefully, I know what you're feeling. Believe me, I understand the need for vengeance. But unleashing the dragon power fueled by pure rage is dangerous, for you and everyone around you. Kira moved to stand beside him, not touching but close enough that he could feel her presence. Hey, she said, her voice uncharacteristically gentle. We're going to figure this out. But blowing up Drive O's kitchen isn't going to bring your friends back. Slowly, deliberately, Naruto unclenched his fists. The coin's glow faded, returning to its dormant state. I need air, he said shortly, pocketing the coin and heading for the back door. No one tried to stop him. The forest behind Tommy's house was nothing like the dense woodlands surrounding Konoha. But Naruto found comfort in the similarities, the whisper of leaves, the scent of earth, the play of sunlight through branches. He moved automatically into a series of stretches, muscle memory from thousands of training sessions asserting itself in the face of emotional turmoil. His body protested slightly, still adjusting to the subtle differences in this dimension's gravity and atmospheric pressure. Hamari had explained that each reality had its own physical constants, minute variations that his physiology would need time to adapt to. Your form is good. Naruto didn't startle at Kira's voice. He had sensed her approach long before she spoke. He continued through the stretching routine without acknowledging her. Though your left side favors the right a bit, she added, coming to stand beside him. Old injury. Despite himself, Naruto was impressed by her observation. Few people had ever noticed the slight asymmetry in his stance, a lingering effect from a particularly brutal mission years ago. Training accident, he replied tersely, transitioning into more complex movements. My friend Sasuke nearly took my arm off during a sparring match. Some friend, Kira remarked, beginning to mirror his movements with surprising accuracy. It was complicated. Naruto watched from the corner of his eye as she matched his kata almost perfectly after seeing it just once. You have good muscle memory. She shrugged, executing a difficult turn with practiced grace. Side effect of being a ranger. The power enhances your physical capabilities, and some of that sticks around even after the active connection fades. They continued in silence for several minutes, moving through increasingly complex forms. Naruto subtly increased the difficulty, curious about her limits. Kira kept pace, though her breathing became more labored as they progressed to movements that required precise chakra control. You know, she said between controlled breaths, drive. Oh, sent me out here too. Make sure you weren't about to go all Dragon Ranger and level the forest in a fit of rage. And I told him you didn't strike me as the destructive tantrum type. She paused in her movements, wiping a bead of sweat from her forehead. You're too controlled for that. You internalize everything instead. Naruto stopped as well, fixing her with an evaluating stare. You've known me for 3 days. I've known people like you my whole life, she countered. The ones who shoulder everything themselves, who think showing vulnerability is the same as showing weakness. Her directness caught him off guard. In Konoha, people had learned to approach him carefully, the Jinchuriki, the war hero, the future Hokage. Only his closest friends had ever spoken to him so bluntly. You don't know me, he said finally, resuming his exercises with increased intensity. To his surprise, Kira laughed, a short, genuine sound that seemed to break through the tension. Maybe not, but I know what it's like to have power you didn't ask for thrust upon you. To suddenly be responsible for things way above your pay grade. She fell back into the routine, matching his increased pace. When I became the Yellow Ranger, I was just a high school student who wanted to play music. Suddenly I was fighting monsters and trying not to fail trigonometry at the same time. Despite himself, Naruto felt the corner of his mouth twitch upward. I was 12 when they put me on a team and expected me to take on A-rank missions. 12. Kira's rhythm faltered. That's messed up. Different world, different standards. Naruto replied with a shrug. Children became genin, junior ninja, as young as 6 during wartime. Still messed up, she insisted, recovering her form. Though I guess I can't talk. Power Rangers have had their share of teenage conscripts. They completed the sequence in companionable silence, ending with a traditional closing pose that Kira mimicked perfectly. As they straightened, she gave him a considering look. You know what you need. Besides therapy, which we all probably need but never get. Naruto raised an eyebrow questioningly. Clothes that don't make you look like Dr. O's slightly smaller clone, she said, gesturing to his borrowed attire. And a crash course in not standing out like an interdimensional sore thumb every time you open your mouth. I have more important things to concern myself with than fashion, Naruto replied stiffly. It's not about fashion, it's about survival, Kira countered. If you're going to help us fight these wraiths, why? Oh, you need to be able to blend in when you're not all Green Ranger ed up. Right now, you practically scream, not from around here, with every move you make. She had a point, Naruto reluctantly admitted to himself. In Konoha, he had excelled at infiltration missions precisely because he understood how to adapt to local customs and behaviors. Fine, he conceded, a basic cultural orientation would be strategically sound. Kira grinned, an expression that transformed her face from merely pretty to genuinely striking. Great, I'll tell drive. Oh, we're taking his credit card and borrowing his Jeep. Now, no time like the present. Dimensional boy. She was already heading back toward the house. Besides, Hamari's going to be scanning and theorizing all day. We might as well be productive while the science happens. Naruto hesitated, glancing back at the forest that had momentarily provided sanctuary. I promise we'll be back before dark, Kira added, correctly reading his reluctance. Hey, the mall has food courts with like 15 different kinds of ramen. The mention of his favorite food, a detail she must have picked up from Tommy, was shameless manipulation. It was also surprisingly effective. Lead the way, Naruto said, falling into step beside her. The mall, as it turned out, was a sprawling complex of interconnected shops and restaurants that made the Konoha marketplace look like a roadside stand. Naruto had seen crowded places before, festivals in Konoha, bustling streets in the land of lightning, but nothing had prepared him for the sensory assault of Hun. Dreads of people moving through enclosed spaces filled with artificial lights, piped-in music, and a cacophony of competing smells. You okay? Kira asked, noticing his tension as they entered through the main doors. You look like you're expecting an ambush. Too many variables, Naruto muttered, his eyes constantly scanning for threats. Too many potential exit points to monitor effectively. Poor visibility for perimeter security. Kira's expression softened with understanding. Hey, I get it. First time I went to the mall after becoming a ranger, I mapped every emergency exit and potential monster entry point. She gently steered him toward a less crowded corridor. But we're not here on a mission. We're just two normal people shopping for clothes, okay? Naruto made a conscious effort to relax his posture, to mimic the casual stance of the civilians around them. Right, normal. The first store Kira led him to specialized in men's clothing, its interior mercifully less crowded than the main concourse. A salesperson approached immediately, but Kira intercepted them with practiced ease. Just browsing, thanks, she said with a smile that somehow communicated both politeness and dismissal. Once they were alone among the racks of clothing, she turned to Naruto. Okay, so what's your style back home? When you're not in whatever that orange jumpsuit thing is. How do you know about that? Naruto asked, surprised. Kira rolled her eyes. Dr. O has a sketch you made when he was asking about your world. Orange is very bold. It was practical, Naruto defended, running his fingers over a display of shirts with unfamiliar fabrics and fastenings. High visibility for teammates to locate during missions, distinctive enough to draw enemy attention away from squad members when necessary. Kira said skeptically, and I'm sure it had nothing to do with wanting to stand out and be noticed. The observation hit closer to home than Naruto cared to admit. His choice of bright orange had indeed begun as a child's desperate plea for attention, though it had evolved into a tactical choice as he matured. What would you suggest? He asked instead of responding directly. For the next hour, Kira guided him through selections of what she called basics, jeans in various shades of blue and black, t-shirts in more subdued colors than his traditional orange. Though she did include one orange shirt, for nostalgia's sake, and a green jacket that she insisted brought out his eyes. The key is to look normal enough not to attract attention, but not so generic that you're forgettable. She explained as he emerged from the dressing room in an outfit she had selected. You want to blend without disappearing. Naruto examined himself in the mirror. The dark jeans and fitted black t-shirt beneath an unbuttoned green overshirt were indeed far different from his usual attire, but not uncomfortably so. He looked local, like he belonged in this world. The thought brought an unexpected pang of guilt, as though adapting to this new reality somehow betrayed the one he'd lost. Kira must have read something in his expression, because her typically sardonic demeanor softened. Hey, she said quietly, getting new clothes doesn't mean forgetting who you are or where you came from. It's just armor of a different kind. Naruto met her eyes in the mirror. You're more perceptive than you let on. She shrugged, a hint of vulnerability flashing across her face before her usual confidence reasserted itself. Yeah, well, don't tell anyone. I've got a reputation to maintain. She checked her watch. We should pay for these and grab some food. I promised you ramen, and a Ford never breaks a food promise. The transaction process was another lesson in local culture. With Kira explaining credit cards, digital payments, and the concept of taxes added to displayed prices, all completely foreign to Naruto's experience with Konoha's straightforward monetary system. As they made their way to the food court, Naruto found himself gradually relaxing, his ninja senses cataloging the environment not as a potential battlefield but as a new territory to understand. The constant vigilance remained. A lifetime of training couldn't be switched off in days, but the edge of anxiety had dulled. So, Kira said as they settled at a small table with bowls of what she assured him was decent ramen for mall food. Tell me about your world. The non-traumatic parts, I mean. Naruto stirred the noodles thoughtfully. The aroma was familiar enough to be comforting but different enough to remind him this wasn't Ichiraku's. What do you want to know? Anything. What was a normal day like for you? Did you have hobbies besides ninja stuff? Favorite foods beyond ramen? She took a bite and added, it helps to talk about the everyday things, you know. Keeps the memories alive. Something about her tone suggested personal experience with loss, though Naruto didn't cry. Instead, he found himself describing Konoha's winding streets, the view from the Hokage monument, the simple pleasure of visiting Ichiraku Ramen after a successful mission. He told her about his friends, Shikamaru's tactical genius combined with unparalleled laziness, Sakura's monstrous strength and healing touch, Sai's awkward attempts to understand emotions through reading self-help books. Kira listened attentively, asking questions that showed genuine interest rather than mere politeness. When he described Team 7's dynamics, she laughed in recognition. Sounds like our Ranger team, she said. Connor was our jock with hidden depths, kind of like your Sasuke minus the whole vengeance thing. Ethan was our tech genius but would rather play video games than save the world some days. And I was the attitude of the group, according to Dr. Oh, and Tommy? Naruto asked, finding himself genuinely curious about the dynamics of Ranger teams. Dr. O was our mentor, technically. But he ended up becoming the Black Ranger when we needed him most. Kira's expression grew thoughtful. He's seen more than any of us. Been through more transformations, more teams, more powers. Sometimes I think that weighs on him. Being the constant while everything else changes. The description reminded Naruto painfully of Kakashi, a veteran of multiple wars who had witnessed generations of young ninja rise and fall. Who carried the burden of survival when so many others had not. It's never easy being the one who endures, he said quietly. Kira studied him over her ramen. You speak from experience. It wasn't a question, but Naruto found himself answering anyway. I've lost people before. My parents, my godfather, friends in battle. But never, everything, not all at once, and yet here you are. Eating mall ramen and shopping for jeans instead of curling up in a ball and giving up. She leaned forward slightly. That takes a kind of strength most people don't have, you know. Before Naruto could respond, a distinctive chime came from Kira's pocket. She pulled out a device similar to the communicator Tommy wore but with yellow accents rather than black. It's Himari, she said, reading the screen. She wants us back at Drive O's place ASAP. Says she's detected something we need to see. Naruto was already on his feet, shopping bags gathered efficiently. Let's go. They made the drive back to Tommy's house in half the time it had taken to reach the mall, Kira demonstrating driving skills that Naruto suspected weren't entirely legal but appreciated nonetheless. As they pulled into the driveway, Naruto noticed an additional vehicle parked near the house, a sleek motorcycle that hummed with technology more advanced than the other vehicles he'd seen in this world. That's Haley's bike, Kira commented, killing the Jeep's engine. She's Drive O's tech guru. Basically built all his Ranger equipment and command center back in the day. You have many allies, Naruto observed. Gathering their purchases. Kira shrugged. Rangers look out for each other. Once you're in the family, you're never really alone. The concept was both familiar and painful. Reminiscent of Konoha's will of fire philosophy that had bound generations of ninja together in service and protection. Inside, they found Tommy, Himari, and a red-haired woman Naruto presumed was Haley gathered around a holographic display in the living room. The furniture had been pushed aside to accommodate a portable laboratory's worth of equipment that definitely hadn't been there when they left. There you are. Hamari said without looking up from her calculations. We've been detecting escalating dimensional fluctuations for the past hour. The pattern is concerning. Define concerning, Kira said, setting down her keys and moving to examine the display. Tommy gestured to a three-dimensional map floating above what appeared to be a modified coffee table. The tiers are forming in a specific geometric pattern around Reefside. If our analysis is correct, they're creating a dimensional grid. Like the points of a net, the red-haired woman added, glancing up to acknowledge their arrival. I'm Haley, by the way, and you must be the interdimensional ninja Tommy's been telling me about. Naruto nodded in greeting, his attention focused on the holographic display. The pattern was indeed reminiscent of a net, with evenly spaced points of light forming a dome-like structure over the city. It's a containment field, he said, recognizing the formation from similar chakra techniques used in high-level capture missions. They're isolating the area. Hamari looked up sharply, her expression a mixture of surprise and validation. That's exactly what our calculations suggest. But how did you know? We used similar tactics in my world, Naruto explained, setting down his bags and moving closer to examine the projection. For capturing particularly dangerous targets, specialized teams would create a chakra barrier grid to prevent escape. Which means they're not just making random incursions anymore, Tommy concluded grimly. They're implementing a strategic plan. Kira crossed her arms, brow furrowed. But what are they trying to contain? The city, or something in it, or someone, Haley added, giving Naruto a meaningful look. The implication was clear. The Wraiths had tracked the dragon coin to this dimension. Now they were establishing a perimeter to ensure it, and its bearer, couldn't escape. How long until the containment field is complete? Naruto asked, his tactical mind already assessing options. Hamari adjusted her glasses, a nervous habit Naruto had noticed emerged when she was processing complex data. At the current rate of tear formation, approximately 3 hours. Once complete, theoretical models suggest it will be impermeable to conventional travel, physical or teleportational. Then we need to disrupt it before completion, Naruto stated, already reaching for the dragon coin in his pocket. Wait, Tommy interjected, we need more information first. Charging in blindly could trigger whatever endgame they're setting up. Haley nodded in agreement. We should at least try to determine where the field is being controlled from. These types of containment systems usually have a focal point, a nexus where the energy is being channeled. Hamari manipulated the holographic display, running calculations at a speed that impressed even Naruto, who had worked with Konoha's best analysts. There, she said finally, highlighting a point near the center of the pattern. The energy flows are converging at the abandoned quarry north of the city. The quarry, Kira groaned. Why is it always the quarry? Just ONC. I'd like to fight interdimensional monsters at a nice beach resort or something. Despite the gravity of the situation, Naruto found himself appreciating her ability to inject humor into tense NTS, a quality that reminded him poignantly of his own younger self, before war and loss had tempered his natural exuberance. Tommy was already moving toward a hidden panel in the wall, which slid open to reveal an arsenal of equipment. We'll take the racer, it's the fastest and has interdimensional shielding. The what? Naruto asked, watching as Tommy pulled out what looked like specialized armor and weapons. Dino Thunder Racer, Kira explained, accepting a yellow accented device from Tommy. Think of it as our version of a battle tank, except it goes about 300 miles per hour and can climb vertical surfaces. Hamari approached Naruto, holding a small disc-shaped device. Before you go, I'd like you to wear this. It's a dimensional resonance tracker. It will help us monitor how your chakra interacts with both the dragon power and the tiers. Naruto accepted the device cautiously. It won't interfere with my abilities. No, it's purely passive, Hamari assured him. The data could be invaluable in understanding how to counteract the Wraith's technology. As Naruto attached the device to his wrist, Tommy distributed communication equipment to the team. Haley and Hamari will coordinate from here. Kira, you and I will take point. Naruto, I'll go where I'm needed, Naruto interjected, his tone making it clear he wasn't accepting a subordinate position. Quote, I appreciate your experience with these rangers and their powers, but I've been fighting and leading teams since I was a child. For a moment, Tension crackled between them, two natural leaders accustomed to command. Then Tommy nodded, a flash of respect in his eyes. Fair enough. But on this team, we work together, no solo heroics. Clear. Naruto inclined his head in acknowledgement, a gesture Tommy returned. Let's move, Kira said, already heading for the door. We've got a dimensional fishing net to cut. The racer turned out to be a sleek, armored vehicle with seating for 4 enough weaponry built into its chassis to take on a small army. Tommy drove with practiced precision, navigating the winding forest roads at speeds that would have been suicidal for a less skilled driver. From the back seat, Naruto observed the changing landscape, mentally mapping the terrain and identifying potential tactical advantages. The quarry Himari had identified appeared to be a massive excavation site, now abandoned and partially reclaimed by nature, not unlike the training grounds on Konoha's outskirts where Team 7 had first come together. Energy readings are spiking, Haley's voice came through the vehicle's communication system. Whatever they're doing, they're accelerating the process. ETA 3 minutes, Tommy replied, pushing the racer faster. Kira turned in the passenger seat to face Naruto. So what's the plan? You've got experience with these containment grids, how do we disrupt them? Naruto appreciated the immediate deference to his expertise. In my world, the standard approach would be to target the focal points simultaneously. But with only 3 of us, we'll need to concentrate on the primary nexus, the point where the energy is being channeled and distributed. Which Himari identified as being near the center of the quarry, Tommy added, taking a sharp turn that sent loose gravel spraying. Yes, but it won't be unprotected, Naruto continued. Based on previous encounters, they'll have wraiths guarding the nexus, probably their strongest ones. So we fight through the grunts to reach the main event, Kira summarized. Standard Ranger playbook, with one addition, Naruto said, an idea forming as he recalled the battle in the town square. My shadow clones combined with the Dragon Ranger power created an unusual effect, the energy distributed among them, creating multiple partial rangers from one power source. Haley's voice held obvious scientific interest. That shouldn't be possible based on everything we know about the Morphin Grid. It's not entirely unprecedented, Tommy noted. Remember the incident with Trent's clone. The White Ranger powers were temporarily split between them. But that was a malfunction, Kira pointed out. You're suggesting doing this deliberately. Naruto nodded. If I can create enough clones and distribute the dragon power among them, we could effectively attack multiple points in the containment grid simultaneously. The strain would be enormous. Himari's concerned voice joined the conversation. The resonance tracker is already showing unusual fluctuations in your chakra when it interacts with the dragon coin's energy. Dividing it among multiple vessels could be dangerous. I've handled worse, Naruto stated simply. The truth was more complex. With the Nine Tails chakra to supplement his own, his reserves were significantly reduced compared to his peak in the shinobi world. But that wasn't information he was ready to share. The racer crested a hill, and the quarry came into view below, a vast bowl-like depression carved into the earth, its terraced sides creating natural levels that descended to a central floor. But what immediately read their attention wasn't the terrain but what hovered above it. A swirling vortex of purple-black energy, easily 100 meters in diameter, with smaller tiers positioned at regular intervals around the quarry's rim. That's bigger than expected, Kira said, her usual sarcasm failing to mask her concern. Tommy brought the racer to a halt on the quarry's edge, hidden behind an outcropping of rock. Himari, are you seeing this? The readings are off the charts, the scientist replied, her voice tight with controlled alarm. That's not just a tear, it's a full-dimensional portal. And it's stable, which should be impossible without technology far beyond what the wraiths have demonstrated previously. As they watched, shapes began to emerge from the smaller tiers around the perimeter, void wraiths, dozens of them, taking positions in a pattern that mirrored the dimensional grid forming above the city. They're creating a physical manifestation of the energy pattern, Naruto observed, anchoring it with their own bodies. Which means if we take out enough wraiths, the containment field should collapse, Tommy concluded. Naruto studied the scene, his tactical mind processing the variables. We need to divide our efforts. Tommy, You and Kira should target the wraiths on the perimeter, disrupt the pattern. I'll go for the central nexus. Alone. That's exactly the kind of solo heroics we agreed to avoid. Tommy objected. Not alone, Naruto corrected, forming a familiar hand seal. Shadow clone jutsu. In a series of small explosions of smoke, 20 perfect duplicates of Naruto appeared. Surrounding the racer, Kira whistled appreciatively. That never gets old. Tommy looked less impressed and more concerned. Even with 20 of you, that central portal is going to be heavily defended. We should coordinate our attack. We will, Naruto assured him, reaching for the dragon coin. My clones will target the perimeter with you while I engage the central nexus. The moment we've disrupted enough anchor points, we converge on the center. After a moment's consideration, Tommy nodded. All right, but maintain constant communication. If something goes wrong, we abort and regroup. Agreed. Naruto turned to his assembled clones. 10 with each of them. Protect and support. Primary objective is disrupting the dimensional anchors. The clones nodded in unison, their expressions matching his own determination. Ready? Tommy asked, reaching for his own morpher. Kira grinned, a flash of excitement breaking through her concern. Let's show these interdimensional parasites they picked the wrong planet to mess with. Naruto held up the dragon coin, feeling its power resonating with his chakra. Dragonzord. Green Ranger power. The transformation engulfed him in green-gold light. The Dragon Ranger armor materializing around him as before. But this time, he was prepared for the surge of power, channeling it deliberately to the 10 clones he'd designated for Ranger enhancement. The effect was immediate and visually striking. While Naruto fully transformed into the Dragon Ranger, the designated clones underwent partial transformations, each manifesting elements of the armor without the complete suit. One clone's arms were covered in the scaled gauntlets, another's torso bore the dragon shield, a third's head was protected by the helmet will. The rest of his body remained unchanged. That's new, Kira remarked, staring at the uniquely transformed clones. Fascinating, Hamari's voice came through the communicator. They're sharing the Morphin grid connection, distributing it based on tactical need rather than replicating it completely. Tommy had already activated his own transformation, a black armor with gold accents materializing around him. Dino Thunder. Power up. Kira followed suit, her yellow ranger armor forming in a flash of energy. Just like old times, she said, her voice slightly altered by the helmet. Except, now we've got a ninja multiplier effect. The assembled team moved to the edge of the quarry, observing the wraiths below. The creatures hadn't yet detected their presence, focused on maintaining He complex energy pattern flowing between them and the central portal. Strike fast, strike hard, Tommy instructed. Don't let them reform their lines once we disrupt the pattern. Naruto nodded, he Dragon Ranger helmet concealing his expression. On my mark. He raised his hand, counting down with his fingers. 3, 2, 1. The attack began with synchronized precision. Tommy and Kira, accompanied by 10 partially transformed shadow clones, descended on opposite sides of the quarry, targeting the wraiths maintaining the perimeter. Naruto himself, fully transformed as the Dragon Ranger, launched directly toward the central portal. The wraiths responded immediately, their mental communications rippling through the air in a cacophony that only Naruto could hear. Perimeter breach detected. Dragon essence approaching central nexus. Containment protocol threatened. The battle erupted across the quarry. Tommy's team engaged the eastern perimeter, his Black Ranger. Powers complemented by the agility and versatility of Naruto's enhanced clones. Kira's squad took the western edge, her sonic scream abilities creating disruptive waves that the clones exploited with precise strikes. Naruto himself faced the greatest resistance. As he approached the central portal, a new type of entity emerged, larger than the standard wraiths, its obsidian body shot through with pulsing veins of purple energy. Unlike the featureless faces of the regular wraiths, this creature had what appeared to be a crystalline mask, faceted like a gemstone, from which emanated a much stronger mental presence. Dragon Ranger identified, it projected, its mental voice deeper and more articulate than the lesser wraiths. The architect anticipated your interference. The dragon dagger materialized in Naruto's hand. Then your architect should have sent more than just you. The enhanced wraith made a sound that might have been laughter, a discordant mental ripple that set Naruto's teeth on edge. I am merely the Harbinger. My purpose is not to defeat you, merely to delay you. With unexpected speed, the creature attacked, its limbs elongating and reshaping into lethal blades. Naruto dodged the initial assault. Years of ninja training combining with the ranger armor's enhanced reflexes to keep him just beyond the creature's reach. The central entity is different, he reported through the communication system. More evolved, more intelligent. It's stalling for time. Time for what? Kira's voice came back, the sounds of battle audible in the background. As if in answer, the central portal began to pulse more rapidly, the swirling energy intensifying. Smaller portals opened around it, each disgorging more wraiths into the quarry. They're reinforcing. Tommy called out. The containment field is nearly complete. Naruto engaged the Harbinger directly, the dragon dagger clashing against its crystalline blades in a shower of green and purple sparks. The creature fought with unexpected skill, its movements suggesting military training rather than the instinctive attacks of the lesser wraiths. You fight well for one so recently bonded to the dragon power, the Harbinger commented. Parrying a thrust that would have impaled a normal opponent. But you lack understanding of what you wield. I understand enough, Naruto replied, executing a complex feint that momentarily caught the creature off guard, allowing him to score a hit along its side. I know your kind destroyed my world for its energy. That makes you my enemy. That's all I need to understand. The Harbinger retreated a step, green energy from the dragon dagger disrupting its form where the blade had connected. Your world was merely one of many. A necessary sacrifice in the grand design. Fury surged through Naruto at the casual dismissal of his entire dimension's worth of lives. The dragon power responded to his emotion, the armor glowing more intensely as he pressed his attack with renewed vigor. Across the quarry, his enhanced clones fought alongside Tommy and Kira, gradually disrupting the perimeter. Each wraith they defeated created a corresponding fluctuatio in the energy grid forming above the city, visible through Hamari's monitoring system. The containment field is destabilizing, Hamari reported. Keep going. The Harbinger, sensing the tide turning, changed tactics. Rather than continuing to engage Naruto directly, it retreated toward the central portal, its body beginning to merge with the swirling energy. The architect sends a message, Dragon Ranger, it projected. Its form already half absorbed into the portal. Your presence in this dimension was anticipated. Indeed, it was arranged. What are you talking about? Naruto demanded, launching himself forward in an attempt to prevent the creature's escape. Why do you think the dragon coin was buried beneath your village? How convenient that you should find it at the moment of your world's destruction. The Harbinger's mental voice had taken on an almost amused quality. Nothing happens by chance in the architect's design. Before Naruto could reach it, the creature disappeared completely into the portal. The moment it vanished, the energy structure began to collapse, the smaller tiers around the perimeter sputtering and closing one by one. The field is breaking down. Hamari's excited voice came through the communicator. The anchors are failing. Naruto stood before the central portal, the Harbinger's words echoing in his mind. Could it be true? Had the destruction of his world been orchestrated specifically to bring him and the dragon coin together? Naruto. Tommy's voice broke through his thoughts. The portal is collapsing. We need to make sure it closes completely. Forcing aside his doubts, Naruto raised the dragon dagger to his helmet and played the familiar three-note melody that had closed the tear in Reefside. The haunting sound resonated with the portal's energy, accelerating its collapse. As the portal shrank, something unexpected happened. A small object shot out of the diminishing tear, moving too fast for even Ranger-enhanced reflexes to intercept. It struck the ground near Naruto's feet, embedding itself in the earth as the portal finally winked out of existence. The quarry fell silent, the wraiths either defeated or retreated through the closing tiers. Kira and Tommy, accompanied by the remaining shadow clones, converged on Naruto's position. What was that? Kira asked, her yellow helmet tilting toward the object protruding from the ground. Naruto knelt to examine it, a small crystalline shard, similar in composition to the Harbinger's mask but with a distinctive pattern etched into its surface. As his fingers closed around it, a jolt of recognition shot through him. It's a message, he said, his voice tight. Or a taunt. Tommy moved closer. What do you mean? Naruto held up the shard, its surface catching the sunlight to reveal the etched symbol, a stylized leaf, identical to the one that had adorned his Konoha headband. "It's from my world," he said quietly. "The symbol of my village." Kira placed a hand on his armored shoulder. Could it mean, there are survivors? Before Naruto could respond, the shard began to glow with a faint blue light, not the purple energy of the wraiths, but something achingly familiar. Chakra. It's not just a symbol, he realized, his enhanced senses detecting what the others couldn't. There's chakra sealed within it. Someone from my world created this. The shard pulsed brighter, responding to his touch. Without warning, it projected a small, flickering image above its surface, a three-dimensional hologram formed of pure chakra. The figure was distorted, unstable, but unmistakable to Naruto. A woman with long dark hair and pale eyes, her face partially obscured by static but still recognizable. "Hinata," Naruto breathed, disbelieving. The holographic image flickered, the chakra sustaining it already fading. A voice emerged, distant, breaking up, but carrying words that sent a shock through Naruto's system. "Trapped between dimensional pocket, others survived. Find us." The message dissolved as the last of the chakra dissipated, leaving the crystal shard inert in Naruto's palm. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Kira broke the silence. "I'm guessing that was someone you know." Naruto stared at the now dormant shard, his mind racing with implications. "Hinata Hyuga. We're close. I thought she died with the others when Konoha fell." Tommy's posture had shifted to alert concern. "This changes things. If there are survivors from your dimension trapped in some kind of pocket reality, then I need to find them," Naruto said, his voice leaving no room for debate. He carefully secured the shard in a compartment of his armor. "But first, we need to understand what the Harbinger meant about my arrival being arranged. About the dragon coin being planted beneath Konoha. It could have been lying," Kira suggested. "Trying to get in your head, make you doubt yourself." "Possibly," Tommy agreed, though his tone suggested he wasn't convinced. "But the wraiths rarely engage in psychological warfare without purpose." Naruto released his transformation, the Dragon Ranger armor dissolving into particles of light that faded around him. His remaining shadow clones, their partial enhancements also disappearing, gathered around him. "Whether it was telling the truth or not," he said, "one thing is clear. There's more to this situation than we initially understood. And now we know that at least some of my people may have survived." He looked out across the quarry, at the scars of battle still visible on its surface. "The architect, whoever or whatever it is, has been manipulating events across dimensions. The destruction of my world, the dragon coin finding its way to me, even my arrival here, it's all connected somehow." "Which means you were brought here for a reason," Kira concluded, her own transformation releasing to reveal her concerned expression. "The question is, was it their reason, or something else's?" As if in response to her question, the crystal shard in Naruto's possession pulsed once more, a brief flicker of familiar chakra that resonated with something deep within him. A connection to his past. A promise of something he had thought lost forever. "Hope. We should get back," Tommy said, his practical nature asserting itself. "Hamari and Haley will want to analyze that shard. See if we can extract more information from it." Naruto nodded, though his mind was already racing ahead, planning next steps, considering possibilities that had seemed impossible just hours earlier. If Hinata had survived, who else might have, and where were they trapped? As they made their way back to the racer, Kira fell into step beside him. "So," she said, her tone deliberately casual, "this Hinata. You said you were close." Despite the gravity of the situation, Naruto found himself almost smiling at the poorly disguised curiosity in her voice. "Yes, we were complicated." "Complicated," Kira repeated, arching an eyebrow. "That's a universal constant, I guess. Boy meets girl. Boy and girl develop feelings, interdimensional parasites destroy boy's entire reality, IRL turns up as a hologram from a pocket dimension." "When you put it that way, it does sound ridiculous," Naruto admitted, surprising himself with the hint of humor in his voice. Kira bumped her shoulder against his. The casual contact oddly comforting. "Welcome to Ranger life, dimensional boy. Ridiculous is just Tuesday around here." As they climbed into the racer for the journey back, Naruto found himself torn between conflicting emotions. Grief for his lost world still weighed heavily upon him, but now a spark of hope had ignited. Hope that not everything had been destroyed, that some part of Konoha might yet survive. And with that hope came determination, a renewed sense of purpose that crystallized into a single, unshakable resolve. He would master this Dragon Ranger power, understand its connection to his world, and find a way to rescue whatever survivors might remain. The architect, whoever or whatever it was, had made a grave miscalculation in allowing that crystal shard to reach him. If its plan had been to isolate Naruto in this new dimension, to cut him off completely from his past, it had failed. The last leaf of Konoha had not fallen after all, and where one leaf survived, a forest might yet grow again. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Resonant Frequencies. Feel it, Kira instructed, her fingers lightly resting on the acoustic guitar's body. Sound isn't just what you hear, it's vibration, wavelength, frequency, it's physical. Naruto placed his palm against the wooden surface as she struck a chord, closing his eyes to focus on the subtle resonance. 3 days had passed since discovering the crystal shard with Hinata's message, and he'd barely slept, driven by the possibility that survivors from Konoha might exist in pocket dimensions. It reminds me of chakra sensing, he said, analyzing the vibrations beneath his fingertips. Different frequencies for different elemental affinities. They sat cross-legged on the floor of Kira's apartment, a modest one-bedroom filled with musical instruments, vintage concert posters, and recording equipment. The coffee table between them was covered with notebooks containing Kira's handwritten frequency RTS alongside Naruto's surprisingly precise sketches of chakra flow patterns. Exactly, Kira nodded, adjusting a tuning peg. When I was the Yellow Ranger, my Terra scream could shatter concrete at the right frequency. But the really cool part came after. I could feel dimensional disturbances as discordant notes, like cosmic static interrupting a clear signal. She struck another chord, this one deliberately off-key. Like that, wrong, jarring. That's what a tear feels like to me, even now. Naruto opened his eyes, studying her with renewed appreciation. Beneath her casual exterior, Kira Road possessed a depth of understanding that rivaled Konoha's best sensor-type ninjas. In my world, he said, there was a clan called the Inuzuka who could hear frequencies no one else could. They RKED with ninja dogs, to track enemies across vast distances. Ninja dogs. Kira's eyebrows rose as she set aside her guitar. That's either the coolest or most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, says the woman who piloted a giant mechanical pterodactyl. Naruto countered, a small smile tugging at his lips. Kira laughed, a genuine sound that seemed to brighten the room. Fair point. Though in my defense, I didn't choose the pterodactyl. The dino gem chose me. Like the dragon coin, Naruto mused, unconsciously touching his pocket where the ancient artifact rested. Similar but different, Kira clarified, reaching for a handheld device Himari had developed. The dino gems bonded with our DNA, became part of us. From what Tommy's told me, the dragon coin is more independent. It's chosen many bearers across time. She activated the device, which emitted a soft humming tone. This is the baseline frequency of our dimension, what Himari calls our reality signature. Listen carefully. Naruto closed his eyes again, focusing his senses. The tone was subtle but unmistakable, a steady vibration that seemed to align perfectly with the ambient energy of this world. Now, ease the recording we took of the crystal shard, Kira continued, adjusting the device's settings. A new sound emerged, similar in bass structure but with noticeable differences. Where the first tone had been steady and harmonious, this one wavered, as though struggling to maintain its coherence. It's unstable, Naruto observed, his brow furrowing in concentration. Fluctuating between frequencies. Exactly. Kira's excitement was evident in her voice. Himari thinks that's because the pocket dimension where your friends are trapped isn't fully separate from our reality. It's like, she paused, searching for an analogy he might understand. Like a satellite orbiting a planet. Connected but distinct. Naruto nodded, following the concept. In chakra terms, we'd call it a parasitic jut. One reality temporarily sustaining itself by drawing energy from another. Which means we might be able to track it, Kira concluded, if we can isolate and amplify the exact frequency of the connection. She retrieved a different instrument, a modified keyboard connected to Himari's equipment. That's where this comes in. Each key is calibrated to a specific dimensional frequency. By playing combinations, we can create resonance patterns that might help locate dimensional weak points. Naruto watched as her fingers danced across the keys, producing sounds that weren't quite music but something more mathematical, precise. There was artistry in her technique, a fluidity that spoke of years of practice transformed to a new purpose. "You're good at this," he observed, translating between art and science. Kira shrugged, though he caught the slight smile of appreciation. "Music's always been my thing, even before the whole Ranger gig. I just found new applications for it." Her fingers paused over the keys. "What about you? Any hobbies besides ninja stuff?" The question caught Naruto off guard. In Konoha, his identity had been so thoroughly entwined with being a shinobi that few had ever asked about his interests beyond training and missions. "I garden," he admitted after a moment. "Or I did. Small plants, mostly. Things that could survive my irregular schedule." "Seriously?" Kira looked genuinely surprised. "Mr. Interdimensional Warrior has a green thumb. Is that strange?" "No, just unexpected. I like it. Adds dimension." She smirked at her own pun. "Maybe we should get you some plants for Dr. O's place. Might make it feel more like home." The simple suggestion, offered so casually, struck Naruto with unexpected force. The idea of creating even a small piece of familiarity in this alien world was both appealing and painful, acknowledging that his stay might be long-term while refusing to forget what he'd lost. Before he could respond, both their communicators chimed simultaneously. Tommy's voice emerged, tense and focused. "Dimensional tear forming downtown, near the harbor. Signatures different from previous incursions, stronger, more stable. All hands on deck." Kira was already on her feet, grabbing her jacket. "So much for music lessons. Ready for some practical application?" Naruto nodded, securing the dragon coin in his inner pocket. As they headed for the door, Kira grabbed the modified keyboard and slung it across her back in a padded case. "You're bringing that?" he asked. "If we're dealing with a new type of tear, we might need all the frequency manipulation we can get," she replied, tossing him a spare helmet as they approached her motorcycle. "Besides, you never know when you'll need to drop a sick beat while fighting interdimensional monsters." Despite the tension of the moment, Naruto found himself appreciating her ability to maintain levity in the face of danger, a quality he had once possessed in abundance. Before war and loss had tempered his spirit. As they sped through the streets of Reefside, the wind whipping past them, Naruto allowed himself a moment to acknowledge how quickly this world was beginning to feel, if not like home, then at least like somewhere he could exist. The constant ache of loss remained, but now it was accompanied by something else, a growing connection to this place and its defenders. The harbor district was already in chaos when they arrived. A swirling vortex of energy hung suspended above the main pier, larger and more stable than previous tiers. Unlike the purple-black energy of earlier incursions, this portal shimmered with an iridescent quality, its edges clearly defined rather than jagged and fluctuating. Tommy had established a perimeter using what he called holographic crowd control barriers, technology that projected the appearance of an official police cordon while actually generating a protective energy field. He stood beside Himari, who was frantically taking readings with an array of equipment. "It's been stable for 7 minutes, Tommy reported as Naruto and Kira joined them. "No wraiths have emerged, but the energy signature is like nothing we've seen before." "It's not a typical tear," Himari added, adjusting her glasses as she studied a holographic readout. "The dimensional frequency is modulated, controlled. Someone is maintaining this from the other side." "Someone, not something?" Naruto questioned, already assessing tactical options. Himari nodded. "The pattern indicates intelligence, precision. The wraiths we've encountered lack this level of finesse." "Could be a trap," Kira suggested, unslinging the keyboard from her back and connecting it to Himari's equipment. "Or a new phase in their attack." Naruto closed his eyes briefly, extending his senses toward the portal. During his time as a sage, he had developed the ability to detect chakra signatures at great distances. While he couldn't access Sage Mode I, in this dimension, the natural energy here responded differently to his attempts. Some of the sensory acuity remained. There's something familiar about it, he said slowly. Not Konoha chakra familiar, but not entirely alien either. A sudden surge of energy pulsed from the portal, causing Himari's instruments to spike dramatically. The tier expanded, its circumference nearly doubling in an instant. Everyone back, Tommy ordered, activating his Dino Thunder Morpher as a precaution. Kira, can you get a read on its frequency? Kira's fingers moved across the modified keyboard, producing G-tones that seemed to interact with the portal's energy. It's complex, layered frequencies overlapping. Almost like, her eyes widened in recognition. It's communicating. The frequency shifts are following a pattern, like code. Before anyone could respond, the portal flashed brilliantly. A sleek metallic object shot through at tremendous speed, trailing iridescent energy as it arced over our heads and crashed into a stack of shipping containers 50 meters away. What the hell was that? Kira exclaimed, shielding her eyes from the impact debris. Not what? Who? Naruto corrected, already moving toward the crash site. His enhanced senses had caught a brief but unmistakable signature, a living being's energy pattern. Tommy followed close behind, his morpher ready. Careful, could still be hostile. As they approached the impact zone, the dust began to clear, revealing a small crater among the toppled shipping containers. In its center stood a figure clad in what appeared to be form-fitting armor of silver and deep purple, a helmet with a star-shaped visor concealing their face. Stay back, the figure ordered, their voice distorted by the helmet but distinctly female. I've got a void wraith on my tail, and I didn't exactly close the door behind me. As if summoned by her words, a massive shape emerged from the still open portal, an obsidian creature similar to the wraiths they'd encountered before, but significantly larger and more developed. Unlike the featureless faces of standard wraiths, this one bore a crystalline structure resembling a crown, pulsing with internal light. That's not your average wraith, Tommy observed, activating his morpher. Dino Thunder, power up. The Black Ranger armor materialized around him just as Kira arrived, her own morpher ready. Dino Thunder, power up. The Yellow Ranger suit formed in a flash of energy. Naruto reached for the dragon coin, but before he could activate it, the armored woman sprinted past him, drawing twin weapons that resembled sleek, futuristic pistols. This one's mine, she declared, firing a barrage of purple-white energy bolts at the emerging wraith. It's been chasing me across three-dimensional boundaries. The creature absorbed the first several shots without visible effect, then responded with a focused beam of energy that the woman barely dodged. The blast struck a nearby crane, instantly crystallizing the metal before shattering it into fragments. Okay, that's new, Kira commented, her Terra grips materializing in her hands. Naruto analyzed the situation rapidly. The armor-ed woman clearly had experience fighting these creatures, but her weapons weren't causing significant damage. The enhanced wraith moved with more purpose and intelligence than the foot soldiers they'd previously encountered, suggesting a higher rank in the hierarchy. Decision made, he raised the dragon coin. Dragonzord, Green Ranger power. The transformation engulfed him in green gold light, he Dragon Ranger armor forming around his body. As the helmet completed, his enhanced senses immediately detected something unusual about both the armored woman and the wraith. They carried energy sign. Atturs unlike anything he'd encountered in this dimension. The woman is from another dimension, he reported to Tommy and Kira through their comms. Not mine, but definitely not from here either. Great, interdimensional tourist season is really picking up, Kira quipped, moving to flank the wraith. The three rangers and the mysterious woman surrounded the creature, which paused to assess the new threat configuration. Its crystalline crown pulsed more rapidly, and Naruto caught fragments of its mental communication. Unexpected resistance. Multiple power signatures. Dragon essence detected. It's communicating with something, Naruto warned. Possibly calling for reinforcements. Then let's not give it the chance, Tommy responded, charging forward with his brachio staff. The battle erupted in earnest, with all four combatants engaging the enhanced wraith from different angles. Tommy and Kira fell into practiced coordination, their years of fighting together evident in their seamless movements. Naruto complemented their assault with precision strikes from the dragon dagger, targeting joints and energy nodes as he would against a powerful chakra user. The armored woman, however, fought with wild unpredictability, alternating between reckless aggression and calculated precision, her fighting style unlike any Naruto had seen before. Her weapons, ineffective at range, transformed into energy blades for close combat, leaving trails of purple light as she slashed at the creature. "You're from KO-35, Tommy called to her during a momentary lull as the Wraith regrouped. "Those are Astro Blasters, modified. Good eye, old man," she replied, executing a back handspring to avoid an energy blast. "But I'm no ranger, if that's what you're thinking." The Wraith seized the moment of distraction, suddenly launching itself skyward with unexpected agility. From its elevated position, it began gathering energy, the crystalline crown glowing with increasing intensity. "It's channeling dimensional energy." Hamari's voice came urgently through their communicators. "If that discharge hits the tear, it could destabilize the entire harbor." Naruto reacted instinctively, forming a familiar hand seal. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 5 perfect duplicates of the Dragon Ranger appeared, immediately leaping upward to intercept the Wraith. The creature, momentarily confused by the multiple identical targets, hesitated just long enough for Naruto to implement the next phase of his improvised plan. "Kira," he called out, "the frequency disruptor." Understanding immediately, Kira activated her Terra Scream, directing it through the modified keyboard she had brought. The resulting sonic wave hit the precise dimensional frequency they had been studying earlier, causing visible disruption in both the tear and the Wraith's gathered energy. The creature howled in mental anguish, its attack faltering as Naruto's clones reached it. Working in perfect coordination, He delivered a synchronized assault that sent the Wraith plummeting back toward the ground. "Now," Tommy shouted, his brachio staff charging with black energy. The mysterious woman reacted first, leaping forward with both energy blades extended. "This is for Centaurus Prime, you void-sucking parasite." Her blades struck the falling Wraith with precision, slicing through its crystalline crown. The moment the crown shattered, the creature's form destabilized, losing cohesion like water without a container. Naruto dismissed his clones and delivered the final blow, a dragon dagger strike directly to the creature's core. Infused with the same green energy that had proven effective against previous Wraiths, the entity collapsed into fragments of obsidian that dissolved before touching the ground. "The tear is closing," Hamari reported. "Whatever connection was maintaining it has been severed." Indeed, the portal was already contracting, its iridescent energy diminishing rapidly. Within moments, it had shrunk to a pinpoint before disappearing completely, leaving only scattered readings on Hamari's instruments. As the dust settled, the 4 combatants gathered amid the wreckage of hipping containers and crystallized debris. Tommy and Kira released their ranger transformations, but Naruto maintained his, still wary of the armored stranger. "You want to tell us who you are and why you led that thing to our dimension?" Tommy asked, his tone firm but not hostile. The woman hesitated, then reached up to remove her helmet. As it detached with a soft hiss, it revealed a woman in her mid-20s with striking features, olive skin, sharp cheekbones, and short silver-white hair with violet tips that matched her armor. Most notable were her eyes, solid lavender with no visible pupils. Clearly non-human despite her otherwise Earth-like appearance. "My name is Lyra Celestis," she said, her accent unlike anything Naruto had heard in this dimension, musical yet clipped, with consonants that seemed to resonate slightly longer than normal. "I'm from KO-35, or what's left of it. And I didn't lead that Wraith here, I was trying to lose it in dimensional transit." "A dimensional game of tag," Kira observed. "Risky strategy." Lyra shrugged, holstering her weapons with a practiced motion. "Worked, didn't it? The crown bearer is dead, and I'm still breathing." She glanced at Naruto, still in his Dragon Ranger form. "Though I didn't expect to find a Dragon Ranger here. Thought that lineage died out centuries ago." "It's complicated," Tommy interjected. "What's your interest in the Wraiths? You called that one a crown bearer. You've fought them before." "Going on 3 years now," Lyra confirmed, kneeling to examine a fragment of the crystalline crown that hadn't yet dissolved. "They hit KO-35 first, then spread to our colony worlds. The Astro Rangers held them off for a while, but..." She trailed off, her expression hardening. Let's just say there's not much left to protect out there. I've been tracking their dimensional jump patterns, trying to stay one step ahead of the harvesting waves. You're a resistance fighter? Kira asked. Lyra let out a short, bitter laugh. I was a smuggler before all this. Specialized in cross-colony contraband. Nothing too harmful, just enough to make a living outside Alliance regulations. She pocketed the crystal fragment. Now I'm whatever needs doing. Scout, fighter, occasionally dimensional refugee. Naruto finally released his transformation, the Dragon Ranger armor dissolving into particles of green light. Lyra's eyebrows rose slightly at seeing his true appearance. You're not from this dimension either, she stated rather than asked. Your energy signature's all wrong for an Earth human. My world was destroyed by the Wraiths. Naruto replied simply. Like yours. Something passed between them, a moment of recognition that transcended their different origins. Both understood what it meant to be the survivor of a dying world. We should continue this conversation somewhere more secure, Tommy suggested, eyeing the gathering emergency response vehicles. Haley's cyberspace is closed today, we can use the back room. As they began gathering equipment, Lyra approached Naruto directly. That technique you used, creating duplicates of yourself. That's not Ranger tech, it's chakra manipulation from my world, Naruto explained. A ninja technique. Ninja, Lyra repeated, testing the unfamiliar word. We had something similar on KO-35, energy manipulators called kineticists. Most Caravians have some telekinetic ability. But kineticists could shape it, use it as an extension of themselves. She studied him with evident curiosity. You combine this chakra with Ranger powers. Still learning how they interact, Naruto admitted. The dragon coin responds to chakra differently than to this world's energy. Fascinating, Lyra mused, then abruptly extended her hand, a surprisingly human gesture from someone so clearly alien. Looks like we've both got reasons to fight these void-spawned parasites. Temporary alliance. Naruto hesitated only briefly before accepting the handshake. Her grip was firm, her skin slightly warmer than human normal, another subtle indication of her alien physiology. Alliance, he agreed, though he noted she had specified, temporary. This woman was clearly used to working alone, making expedient connections rather than lasting bonds. As they joined the others, Naruto caught Kira watching their interaction with an unreadable expression. When their eyes met, she quickly looked away, busying herself with disconnecting her equipment from Himari's sensors. I've got Haley preparing for our arrival, Tommy reported, closing his communicator. Naruto, mind helping Himari with her equipment? As Naruto moved to assist the scientist, he overheard Kira addressing Lyra with forced casualness. So, space smuggler turned dimensional freedom fighter. That's quite the career change. Says the musician who morphs into a yellow pterodactyl warrior, Lyra countered smoothly. We all have our side hustles. The tension between them was subtle but unmistakable. Two strong personalities instantly recognizing potential friction. It reminded Naruto painfully of early Team 7 dynamics, Sakura and Sasuke's initial interactions, filled with unspoken challenges and assessments. The memory brought both comfort and grief. For all their early conflicts, Team 7 had eventually become family. Whether this new, improvised team could forge similar bonds remained to be seen. Haley's cyberspace was a curious blend of cafe, technology center, and informal meeting space. With the closed sign prominently displayed, the team had converted the main area into an impromptu briefing room. Holographic displays showed dimensional energy patterns across Reefside, while physical maps and diagrams covered nearly every available surface. Lyra stood examining one of the displays, her posture suggesting military training despite her claims of being a smuggler. Your dimension's been experiencing tears for how long now? Major incursions started about 6 months ago, Tommy replied, manipulating a timeline display, though Haley's systems detected minor fluctuations for nearly a year before that. Consistent with the harvesting pattern, Lyra nodded. They send scouts first, small tears, barely detectable. Then come the wraiths, then the crown bearers to establish stable portals. And after that, Kira asked, perched on a nearby counter, street, keeping subtle distance from their new ally. Lyra's expression darkened. Depends on what they're after. Some dimensions they strip completely, pull all the energy until nothing's left but void space. Others they colonize, transform into breeding grounds for more wraiths. Breeding grounds. Hamari looked up from her analysis of the crown fragment. You mean they reproduce? Not sexually, Lyra clarified. They convert. Living beings exposed to concentrated void energy eventually transform. Become like them. She unconsciously touched a scar visible at her collar. Saw it happen to half my crew when we tried to reclaim a mining colony in the Centaurus system. The implications hung heavily in the room. Naruto thought of the curse mark transformations he had witnessed in his LD. Orochimaru's test subjects slowly losing their humanity as the corrupted chakra overtook them. That explains why they targeted specific populations in my world first, he said quietly. Villages. With unique Kekkei Genkei, bloodline abilities that manifested in unusual chakra forms. Hamari adjusted her glasses, a habit Naruto had noticed emerged when she was processing new information. They were selecting for genetic traits that would create specialized wraiths when converted. Selective harvesting, Lyra confirmed grimly. Different dimensions offer different flavors, I guess you could say. Different useful traits for their army. Tommy moved to the central map. The question is, what do they want from this dimension specifically? Our world has had connections to the Morphin grid for millennia, but they've only recently begun targeting us. It's not just the grid, Kira suggested, strumming absently on an unplugged electric guitar, her way of thinking through problems. It's the combination of the grid and... She glanced at Naruto. Chakra, he finished, understanding immediately. They've found a dimension where both energy systems exist simultaneously. Bingo, Lyra said, pointing at him. Dimensional energy parasites love confluences, places where different power systems overlap. Creates unique harvesting opportunities. Hamari's eyes widened with sudden realization. That's why they destroyed your world first, Naruto. They weren't just harvesting chakra, they were clearing the way for the next phase. Dimensional triangulation, Lyra agreed. Take out one point of a confluence, and you can control how the remaining energies interact. Basic dimensional piracy tactic. Is that the technical term? Kira asked dryly. Lyra shrugged, unperturbed by the sarcasm. When you've spent as much time hopping dimensions as I have, you develop a shorthand. Naruto had moved to study the energy pattern displays, his tactical mind assessing implications. If they destroyed my world to better access this one, that suggests a larger strategy. The wraiths we've encountered so far have been scouts and advance forces, not the main invasion. The crown bearer today was different, Tommy observed. More powerful, more intelligent. Higher in the hierarchy, Lyra confirmed. The one you call the Harbinger, the one with the full-face crystal mask instead of just a crown. That's a Void Architect's direct servant. Only encountered a few of those myself. Void Architect, Hamari questioned, typing rapidly on her tablet to update their intelligence database. The big bad, Lyra explained. Never seen one myself, not and lived to tell about it. According to what's left of KO-35's archives, they're the masterminds. Each controls a harvest fleet targeting multiple dimensional clusters. The information aligned with what they had already pieced together, but hearing it confirmed by someone with direct experience lent it new weight. They weren't Ching random incursions but a coordinated, methodical consumption of reality itself. So how do we stop them? Kira asked the question they were all thinking. If they've already harvested multiple dimensions and keep growing stronger, what chance do we have? An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Even Tommy, usually ready with a plan or at least words of encouragement, seemed momentarily at a loss. It was Naruto who broke the silence. We find their weakness, he said firmly. Every enemy, no matter how powerful, has one. Care to share your insights, Dimensional Ninja Boy? Lyra asked, her tone somewhere between skeptical and hopeful. Naruto moved to the center of the room, falling naturally into the role of strategic advisor, a position he had often occupied in Konoha's war councils. First, we know they're after specific energy combinations, chakra and morphin grid power. That suggests they can't create these energies themselves, they can only harvest them. Tommy nodded thoughtfully. Parasites, not generators. Second, Naruto continued, they operate hierarchically. The wraiths we've encountered so far follow specific patterns, suggest limited autonomy. They take direction from the crown bearers, who answer to the harbingers, who serve these architects. Cut off the head, the body dies, Kira suggested. Potentially, Naruto agreed. But more importantly, hierarchical structures have communication vulnerabilities. If we can intercept or disrupt their communications, we could feed them false information, Himari realized, excitement building in her voice. Or track their communications back to source points. Lyra looked impressed despite herself. Not bad, ninja. Ko-35 tried something similar before the main colony fell. The problem was getting close enough to a crown bearer to access the crystalline network without being detected. I might have a solution for that, Naruto said, retrieving the dragon coin from his pocket. The wraiths react differently to me, to the dragon power. The harbinger said it was primary target located, suggesting they specifically seek this energy. A lure, Tommy understood immediately, though his expression showed clear concern. Use the dragon ranger power to attract them, then spring a trap. It's risky, Kira objected, setting aside her guitar. They clearly want the dragon coin for a reason. Dangling it in front of them is asking for trouble. Sometimes the best way to understand an enemy is to let them think they're winning, Naruto countered. Years of ninja missions had taught him the value of calculated vulnerability, appearing weaker or more exposed than you actually were to draw out an opponent's true intentions. Lyra studied him with newfound respect. You've done this before, played bait, many times, Naruto confirmed. It was a specialty of mine. The statement brought unexpected pain. Memories of missions with Team 7, with Kakashi-sensei carefully coordinating IR positions while Naruto drew enemy attention with his trademark unpredictability. How many times had that strategy saved lives? How many times had his friends been able to complete objectives while enemies focused on the loud, orange-clad ninja? We'd need a way to tap into their communication network, Himari pointed out, bringing the discussion back to practicalities. The crown fragment Lyra recovered might help, but it's deteriorating rapidly outside its host. I might have something better, Lyra said after a moment's hesitation. She reached into a concealed compartment in her armor, and withdrew a small device resembling a violet crystal shard embedded in metal circuitry. Salvaged this from a crown bearer in the Centaurus system. It's a communication node, damaged, but potentially repairable. She placed it on the table, and Himari immediately leaned forward to examine it, her scientific curiosity overriding any lingering suspicion of their new ally. This is incredible, she breathed. The crystalline structure interfaces directly with dimensional frequency wavelengths. With some modifications, we might be able to not only intercept their communications but potentially locate dimensional weak points. Like where the pocket dimensions containing survivors might be connected, Naruto concluded, renewed hope surging through him. The crystal shard with Hinata's mess. Age had provided evidence that some of his people survived, but locating their dimensional pocket had proven impossible with their current technology. Exactly, Himari confirmed. If I can integrate this with the frequency mapping equipment Kira's been using, we might be able to create a dimensional resonance scanner. Tommy had been quietly assessing both the tactical situation and the group dynamics. It's worth pursuing, but we need to move carefully. Lyra, how long before the wraiths realize one of their crown bearers has been destroyed in this dimension? Hard to say, she admitted. Their temporal perception is different from ours. Could be minutes, could be days. But once they know, they'll send replacements, probably multiple crown bearers with wraith escorts. Then we have limited time, Tommy decided. Himari, work with Haley on integrating that communication node into our systems. Kira, we'll need your frequency expertise to calibrate the scanner properly. What about me? Lyra asked, her posture subtly challenging. She clearly wasn't accustomed to taking orders. Tommy regarded her thoughtfully. You have first-hand experience with these crown bearers that none of us possess. I'd like you to work with Naruto on developing our trap strategy. It was a diplomatic solution, acknowledging Lyra's expertise while ensuring she worked within their team structure rather than independently. Naruto recognized the leadership tactic from his own experiences coordinating diverse ninja teams with specialists unused to collaboration. Fine, Lyra agreed after a moment, but if we're setting a trap, we'll need better weapons than what I saw today. No offense to your color-coded spandex powers, but standard ranger weapons barely scratch advanced wraiths. The dragon dagger was effective, Naruto pointed out, because it channels primordial grid energy, Tommy explained. It's one of the oldest ranger weapons in existence, connected to the deepest layers of the morphin grid. Which suggests a potential approach, Himari interjected, looking up from her examination of the communication node. If we could combine the Dragon Ranger's power with Naruto's chakra techniques in a more deliberate way. Quote, like what you did with your clones, Kira added, but more focused. What was that swirling energy ball thing you described from your world? Rasengan, Naruto supplied, unconsciously making the hand motion used to form the technique. It's a concentrated sphere of rotating chakra that causes cellular damage on impact. That sounds like it would play nice with dragon energy, Lyra observed. The possibility intrigued Naruto. He had already discovered that his shadow clone technique interacted uniquely with the ranger powers. Could the Rasengan, technique that had defined his ninja career, similarly be enhanced by the dragon coin's energy? It's worth testing, he agreed. But we'll need a safe location. An enhanced Rasengan could be destructive. The abandoned quarry, Tommy suggested. It's already been the site of dimensional activity, so any energy spikes will be masked by residual readings. I'll need access to whatever data you have on how chakra interacts with grid energy, Naruto said to Himari. The more I understand the theoretical framework, the better I can control the integration. The scientist nodded enthusiastically. I've been compiling analysis since you arrived. It's fascinating how the two systems resonate, like they're distantly related but evolved along different pathways. Like parallel evolution across dimensions, Kira mused, her musical background giving her an intuitive grasp of resonance concepts. Same basic principles adapted to different environments. The team's dynamic was shifting perceptibly as they coalesced around this new plan, old suspicions giving way to professional respect. Even Lyra seemed less guarded, her tactical mind clearly engaged by the challenge. All right, Tommy concluded. Himari and Haley will work on the scanner. Naruto and Lyra will develop the trap strategy and test power combinations at the quarry. Kira, I'll go with them, Kira interjected quickly. If we're dealing with dimensional frequencies, you'll need someone who can hear the subtle changes. Plus, someone has to make sure these two don't accidentally tear a hole in reality while experimenting. Her reasoning was sound, but Naruto detected an undercurrent. She didn't entirely trust Lyra yet, and perhaps wanted to ensure her own place in this evolving team configuration. Agreed, Tommy said after a brief pause. Keep your communicators active at all times. If there's any sign of wraith activity, fall back immediately, no heroics. As they began preparing for their respective tasks, Naruto found himself momentarily isolated at the edge of the room. The familiar feeling of being simultaneously part of a team yet somehow separate from it reminded him painfully of his early days. In Konoha, accepted for his skills but still held at a distance because of what he contained. Hey, Kira's voice broke through his thoughts as she approached. You okay? You went all broody ninja there for a second. Naruto managed a small smile at her description. Just remembering. The team dynamics remind me of my old squad. Team 7, right, Kira recalled from their previous conversations. The stoic genius, the cherry blossom medic, and you, the unpredictable future Hokage. The accurate summary of his former team, delivered with her characteristic blend of insight and casualness, caught Naruto off guard. He hadn't realized how much he'd shared with her during their conversations, nor how attentively she had listened. Yes, he acknowledged, seeing everyone fall into roles here, it brings back memories. Kira studied him for a moment, then said quietly, you know, it's okay to find similarities between then and now. Doesn't mean you're replacing them or forgetting them. Once again, she had cut directly to the heart of his unspoken conflict, the guilt that came with forming new connections when so many had been severed by the destruction of his world. It's not that simple, he began. But she interrupted with gentle firmness. It never is, but you're allowed to have both. Honor what was while building what is. She gestured toward their new allies. Besides, we need you focused if we're going to find your friends in those pocket dimensions. The reminder of their immediate purpose, the possibility that Hinata and perhaps others had survived, refocused Naruto's thoughts. Whatever complex emotions he might be navigating, the mission remained clear. Find the survivors, understand the enemy, protect this dimension from the fate that had befallen his own. You're right, he conceded. One step at a time. Lyra approached, her armor now partially disassembled to reveal more practical clothing beneath, a fitted black jumpsuit with violet accents that stead both functionality and Caravian design. If you two are done with the pep talk, she said, her tone brisk but not unkind, we should head to this quarry. Crown bearers don't stay dead for long in dimensional terms, and I'd rather have some new tricks ready when the replacements arrive. Always with the sunshine and optimism, huh? Kira remarked. Lyra's lavender eyes narrowed slightly. Sue, Vived this long by preparing for worst-case scenarios. You Earth Rangers might have the luxury of optimism, but those of us from conquered dimensions know better. The tension between them flared again, but before it could escalate, Naruto stepped forward. You're both right, he said firmly. We need Kira's knowledge of this dimension and Ranger history. We need Lyra's experience fighting wraiths across multiple realities. And right now, we need to work together. Both women looked at him with surprise, Kira because his normally reserved demeanor had given way to clear leadership, and Lyra because she hadn't expected intervention from what she likely perceived as the quiet tactical advisor. After a moment, Lyra gave a short nod. Fair enough, ninja. Lead the way. The quarry stood empty and silent under the afternoon sun, its terraced walls still bearing scars from their previous battle. Tommy had provided transportation, a modified jeep equipped with what he called basic dimensional shielding, and Himari had supplied them with monitoring equipment to track their experiments. So, Kira began as they unloaded the gear. What exactly are we testing here? Dragon-powered Rasengan, shadow clone frequency detection, interdimensional ninjutsu, all of the above, Naruto replied, surveying the open space. But first, I need to understand how the dragon power responds to deliberate chakra manipulation rather than just passive interaction. He removed the dragon coin from his pocket, studying its ancient surface. During previous transformations, I've felt the power responding to my emotions and intentions. But I haven't tried directing it with specific chakra techniques. Like your energy control exercises? Kira asked, recalling their training sessions. Naruto nodded. In my world, chakra manipulation begins with concentration exercises, focusing energy in specific patterns through the body's pathways. If the dragon power follows similar principles, you might be able to direct it more precisely, Lyra finished, displaying unexpected knowledge of energy manipulation theory. At Kira's questioning look, she explained, Caravian telekinesis works on similar principles. Concentration, visualization, directed flow. Exactly, Naruto confirmed. I'm going to try a basic transformation first, then attempt to channel the power along specific chakra pathways rather than letting it distribute naturally. He moved to the center of the quarry floor, adopting a meditation posture similar to what he had used for sage training. The dragon coin rested in his open palm as he closed his eyes, focusing on the familiar sensation of chakra circulation within his body. In Konoha, he would have sensed his chakra as a warm, blue energy flowing through established pathways. Here, in this dimension, it felt slightly different, more diffuse, less concentrated, as though the very nature of energy behaved according to different physical laws. Slowly, deliberately, he began to form the hand seals used for precise chakra control, adapting the sequence to accommodate the subtle differences in this world's energy patterns. The dragon coin responded immediately, glowing with increasing intensity as it resonated with his focused chakra. Green-gold light began to emanate from the coin, not in the explosive transformation of previous morphs, but in controlled streams that followed the paths Naruto visualized. It's working, Kira observed, her voice hushed. The monitoring equipment beside her beeped steadily, tracking the energy fluctuations. E-power is following your direction instead of just enveloping you. Naruto maintained his concentration, guiding the dragon power through pathways that mirrored chakra circulation points. Instead of triggering a full transformation, he was creating a hybrid state. His body remained unchanged, but the energy flowed visibly across his skin in patterns reminiscent of glowing green circuit lines. Remarkable control, Lyra commented. genuine admiration in her voice. Most beings would be overwhelmed by that much raw grid energy. The next stage was more challenging. Naruto began forming a Rasen. Gon in his right hand, a technique that normally required intense concentration to maintain the spherical shape and rotation of pure chakra. As the familiar swirling energy took form, he carefully introduced dragon power into the mixture. The result was immediate and dramatic. The standard blue-white Rasengan transformed, green-gold energy intertwining with the chakra spirals to create a sphere that pulsed with combined power. The air around it shimmered with dimensional distortion, as though the technique was affecting the very fabric of reality. "That's not subtle," Kira observed, checking the readings on the monitor. "Energy output is off the charts. Whatever that is, it's not just adding two power sources together, they're multiplying each other." "Dimensional resonance amplification," Lyra suggested, her eyes fixed on the swirling sphere. "The two energy types are harmonizing at a quantum level." Naruto carefully maintained the enhanced Rasengan, studying how the energies interacted. The technique felt both familiar and alien. The core was still his signature jutsu, but the dragon power had transformed it into something that transcended dimensional boundaries. "I'm going to test its effect," he announced, slowly rising to his feet without disrupting the delicate energy balance. "Stand back." Once Kira and Lyra had retreated to a safe distance, Naruto approached 1-0. The larger boulders that had fallen during their previous battle with the wraiths. The enhanced Rasengan pulsed brighter as he drew near his target, seeming to react to his intention. Dragon Rasengan, he named the technique as he thrust it forward, connecting with the massive stone. The impact defied conventional physics. Instead of simply shattering the boulder, the Dragon Rasengan created a localized dimensional effect. The stone seemed to simultaneously compress and expand, glowing with internal green-gold light before disappearing entirely, not destroyed but apparently translocated to another dimensional pocket. Where the boulder had stood, a small tear in space briefly appeared before sealing itself with a flash of green energy. "Did you just send that rock to another dimension?" Kira asked incredulously. Naruto stared at his hand, the technique now dissipated. "That wasn't my intention. I expected enhanced destructive power, not dimensional displacement." Lyra was examining the space where the boulder had been, scanning it with one of her modified weapons. "You didn't just affect the rock, you temporarily altered the dimensional constants in that specific location. Created a micro-portal that responded to your chakra signature. Which means," Kira realized, excitement building in her voice, "if we can control where those micro-portals lead, we might be able to open pathways to the pocket dimensions where survivors are trapped." Naruto finished, the implications sending a surge of hope through him. Hamari's voice came through their communicators, tinged with scientific excitement. "We're receiving your data stream. The energy signature you just generated matches frequency patterns from the crystal shard with Hinata's message. Naruto, you've just discovered how to punch through to pocket dimensions." The news was almost overwhelming. What had begun as an experiment to create more effective weapons against the wraiths had potentially revealed a method to rescue survivors from his world. "We need to refine it," Naruto said, already planning next steps. "The technique is unstable, unpredictable. We need precise control over where the micro-portals lead." "That's where my frequency mapping comes in," Kira said, retrieving her modified keyboard from their equipment. "If we can identify the exact resonance frequency of Hinata's pocket dimension and tune your Dragon Rasengan to match, we could create a targeted portal," Lyra concluded. "Risky, but theoretically viable." Naruto formed the Shadow Clone Hand Seal, eating 3 duplicates to assist with the next phase of testing. "We'll need multiple approaches. One clone will work with Kira on frequency mapping, one will help Lyra analyze the dimensional constants, and one will communicate findings back to Hamari." The original Naruto moved to a clear space, preparing to attempt another Dragon Rasengan with modifications based on their initial observations. The clones dispersed to their assigned tasks, each carrying a portion of his consciousness and chakra. As testing continued throughout the afternoon, patterns began to emerge. The dragon power responded most strongly to emotions connected to protection and rescue, suggesting the coin itself had some form of awareness or purpose beyond mere energy projection. When Naruto focused on Hinata's cries, Tall message while forming the Dragon Rasengan, the resulting dimensional distortion showed frequencies closer to those recorded from the shard. It's like the coin wants to help, Kira observed during a break in testing. The energy output spikes whenever you focus on saving your friends. Tommy mentioned that the dragon coin is believed to have some form of consciousness, Naruto recalled. In my world, certain powerful artifacts developed something like sentience after prolonged exposure to concentrated chakra. Caravian legends speak of similar phenomena, Lyra added, making adjustments to her scanning equipment. Objects that absorbed enough telekinetic energy eventually developed rudimentary will. The sun was beginning to set when their communicators activated with Tommy's urgent voice, "We've got movement." Multiple dimensional fluctuations forming around the city, similar pattern to the containment grid from before, but more sophisticated. They're responding to our experiments, Lyra realized immediately. The energy signatures we've been generating must have attracted attention. Kira was already packing up equipment. How long do we have? Cheers are still forming, Tommy replied. Hamari estimates 30 minutes before they stabilize enough for wraiths to come through. You should return to base immediately. Naruto dismissed his remaining clones, absorbing their accumulated knowledge and experience. The combined information created a more complete picture of what they had discovered, and its potential applications. We need to continue this research, H.E. insisted as they loaded equipment into the jeep. If the Dragon Rasengan can create stable micro-portals, it might be our best chance of rescuing survivors and understanding the dimensional network the wraiths are using. Agreed, Kira said, but maybe without broadcasting our experiments to every void wraith in the multiverse. Lyra secured her weapons with practiced efficiency. We need better shielding. On KO-35, we developed quantum dampeners that could mask energy signatures from interdimensional sensors. Haley might be able to adapt something similar, Kira suggested as they finished loading. She's done wonders with less. As they prepared to depart, Naruto paused, looking back at the quarry. Something didn't feel right, an instinct honed through years of combat warning him of unseen danger. Wait, he said, raising a hand. We're being watched. Kira and Lyra immediately tensed, hands moving to their respective weapons. Wraiths? Kira asked quietly. No, Naruto replied, extending his senses. Something else. Something familiar. He closed his eyes, focusing on the faint energy signature he had detected. It wasn't wraith energy, nor was it the morphin grid. Power he had grown accustomed to in this dimension. It was chakra, faint, distant, but unmistakable to someone who had spent his life surrounded by it. There, he said, pointing toward a shadowed crevice in the quarry wall. Someone from my world is here, watching us. Lyra raised her modified Astro Blaster, its targeting system activating with a soft hum. Friendly or hostile? Unknown, Naruto replied, already moving forward cautiously, but they're masking their chakra signature, a ninja technique. As they approached the indicated location, the shadowy crevice suddenly rippled, as though reality itself was distorting. A small tear appeared, not the violent purple-black of wraith portals, but a subtle blue shimmer that reminded Naruto of genjutsu effects. Dimensional pocket opening, Lyra warned. Her weapon trained on the disturbance. A figure began to materialize within the tear, humanoid, feminine, with long dark hair that seemed to float in an unfelt breeze. As the form solidified, Naruto stopped abruptly, recognition hitting him like a physical blow. Hinata, he breathed, disbelieving. The woman stepped fully into their dimension, the tear closing behind her. She was undeniably Hinata Hyuga, yet changed from the person Naruto had known. Her traditional ninja attire had been replaced by what appeared to be armor crafted from an unfamiliar silvery material. Most street-ricking were her eyes, the characteristic pale lavender of the Byakugan, but now with a faint luminescence that suggested enhanced power. Naruto-kun, she said, her voice stronger and more assured than he remembered. I've been searching for you across dimensional boundaries. Naruto took a step forward, then hesitated. In his world, infiltration techniques including transformation jutsu were common. This could be a trap, a wraith mimicking Hinata's appearance to lure him. Prove your identity, he demanded, his hand moving to the dragon coin instinctively. A small smile touched Hinata's lips, fond, understanding. The first time I spoke to you at length, you were sitting on a training post after failing your graduation exam. I told you I believed in you. You said I was weird, but nice. The memory, private, personal, unknown to anyone else, confirmed her identity more effectively than any jutsu could have. Naruto's defensive posture relaxed slightly, though caution remained. How are you here? The message in the crystal, quote, was a beacon, Hinata explained, taking a careful step forward. I've been able to track it across dimensional frequencies. When you activated it with your chakra, it created a resonance I could follow. She glanced at Kira and Lyra, who remained on alert behind Naruto. Your experiments today created stronger ripples, dimensional disturbances that allow me to locate you precisely and briefly stabilize a crossing point. You can traverse dimensions, Lyra asked, her professional interest overriding suspicion. Without technology, Hinata's glowing eyes shifted to the Caribbean. Not easily, and not for long. The Byakugan evolved after our world began collapsing. Some of us developed the ability to perceive dimensional layers, and eventually, to move between them for short periods. Quote, some of us. Naruto seized on the plural. There are other survivors. Hinata nodded, relief evident in her expression. A few hundred, scattered across pocket dimensions. When the final collapse came, several of us with space-time-related abilities managed to create dimensional pockets, small reality bubbles that escaped the main harvesting wave. The confirmation that others had survived sent a wave of emotion through Naruto so powerful that the dragon coin in his pocket began to glow in response. Hope, relief, joy, emotions he had suppressed since arriving in this dimension flooded through him. Who? He asked, his voice rough with barely controlled feeling. Who survived? The Hyuga compound was the first to establish a pocket dimension, Hinata explained. My father and sister are safe, along with about 50 clan members. Shikamaru managed to save most of the Nara clan using shadow techniques to create a dimensional fold. Rock Lee and Guy Sensei escaped through a gate created by opening the 8 gates simultaneously. Each name was like a gift. Friends and comrades Naruto had mourned now revealed to be alive, if displaced. Hold continue this conversation somewhere secure, Kira interrupted gently, eyeing the darkening sky. Tommy reported dimensional tears forming, remember. She's right, Lyra agreed, though her Han remained casually directed toward Hinata. If you can cross dimensions, so can pursuers. Hinata nodded in understanding. I can't stay long regardless. Maintaining presence in a foreign dimension drains chakra rapidly. I came only to establish contact and confirm Naruto's survival. She reached into a pouch at her waist and withdrew a small crystal similar to the one that had contained her message, but larger and more intricately faceted. This is a dimensional resonance key, she explained, offering it to Naruto. It's attuned to the frequency of the primary pocket dimension where most survivors have gathered. With the right technique, it can create a stable portal between dimensions. As Naruto accepted the crystal, their fingers brushed briefly. The contact sent a jolt of chakra. Between them, a connection that transcended physical proximity, as though their essences recognized each other across the dimensional divide. The Dragon Rasengan, he realized. That's the technique. We've been developing it to create micro-portals. Hinata's eyes widened with recognition. You've combined your chakra with this world's energy source. She seemed to search for words. That's exactly what we theorized might be possible. The Hyuga elders believed that chakra and what they called cosmic grid energy were fundamentally compatible. They're right, Kira confirmed, stepping forward and finally lowering her defensive posture. We've been tracking the resonance patterns. There's a harmonic relationship between chakra and the morphin grid. Hinata studied Kira with her enhanced Byakugan, then Lyra. Her expression revealing nothing of her assessment. You've found allies in this dimension. Good, you'll need them. Her form suddenly flickered, becoming temporarily translucent before solidifying again. My time is running short. The dimensional pocket can only spare my presence for minutes at a time. Wait, Naruto reached toward her instinctively. There's so much to discuss, to plan. Use the resonance key with your Dragon Rasengan, Hinata instructed, her form beginning to fade again. Focus on the frequency pattern within the crystal. It will guide your technique to our location. Her expression softened, becoming more like the Hinata he remembered. We never lost faith that you survived, Naruto-kun. Even when the world ended around us, we believed you would find a way. Before he could respond, her form dissolved into particles of blue light that spiraled briefly before disappearing completely. The dimensional rift that had brought her closed with a soft pulse of energy, leaving no trace of her presence except the crystal in Naruto's hand. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Kira moved to Naruto's side, placing a gentle hand on his arm. That was not what I expected from our field test today. Me neither, Naruto admitted, staring at the resonance key. The crystal felt warm against his palm, pulsing faintly with chakra that unmistakably carried Hinata's signature. Lyra approached cautiously, her analytical mind already processing implications. If what she said is true, there are hundreds of survivors from your world scattered across dimensional pockets, all potentially accessible with the right technique, and all potentially vulnerable to wraith harvesting if they're found, Kira added grimly. Naruto closed his fingers around the crystal, determination replacing shock. Then we need to find them first. All of them. Their communicators activated again, Tommy's voice more urgent than before. Team, what's your status? The dimensional tiers are stabilizing more rapidly than anticipated. We're detecting wraith emergence at multiple points around the city. We're heading back, Kira responded immediately. And Tommy, we've got a situation. A visitor from Naruto's dimension just made contact. There was a brief pause before Tommy replied, understood. Return to base immediately. Full security protocols in effect. As they hurried back to the jeep, Naruto's mind raced with possibilities. The revelation that hundreds of his people had survived the destruction of their world changed everything, his purpose in this dimension, his approach to the wraith threat, his personal path forward. The dragon coin in one pocket, the dimensional resonance key in the other, two artifacts representing different aspects of his existence now. Not just a refugee from a destroyed reality, but a potential bridge between worlds, a rescuer rather than merely a survivor. You okay? Kira asked quietly as they drove toward the city, her eyes briefly meeting his in the rearview mirror. Better than okay, Naruto replied honestly. For the first time since arriving in this dimension, he felt something he had almost forgotten, not just hope, but purpose. Clear, defined purpose. From the back seat, Lyra observed their interaction with unreadable lavender eyes. Just remember, she cautioned, hope is a luxury in dimensional warfare. Trust me, I've seen too many crushed by expecting too much. Maybe, Naruto acknowledged, but where I'm from, hope is also a weapon. Sometimes the most powerful one we have. As they drove toward the impending battle, the dragon coin and the resonance key pulsed in synchronization, two power sources from different dimensions, harmonizing with increasing strength. Whether coincidence or cosmic significance, the alignment felt right to Naruto. The last shinobi of Konoha was no longer alone, and the Dragon Ranger had just found a new mission. Chapter 3 End. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.